3, 2, 1. You're a rebel now. That was a quote.
Woo!
From a... Oh, you're so excited about it. I'm Adam from Sardonicast. I mean, your movie sucks, but this is also Sardonicast. Doing great.
And I'm Borgullet from Rogue One. I mean, Alex from IHE.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations.
Oh, you did
director.
It. I was about to do it. You whipped it straight from...
Yeah.
Man, you stole the thunder right there, yeah.
There were 2 quotes
was it, yeah.
from the entire film that were memorable.
I'll hold my tongue.
You'll hold your tongue, but you burnt it.
I did burn it, yeah, on my tea that I just started sipping. It's part of the ritual for the podcast, make a tea. But yeah, I burnt my tongue and it hurts. So it's my first burn episode. I guess it's fair for burning you for having to watch Rogue One. You know, that's karma.
Oh yeah, it is.
Media.
Have you've never just? So I drank tea for the first time in, I don't know, a year, 2 nights ago. And I just put
we're talking English breakfast, yeah?
Well, it was what was it? It was like a red something.
Red.
It kind of tasted like whatever the fuck. What is the English breakfast tea? Is it literally just called
English breakfast? Yeah, that's what you want.
It kind of tasted. There's another word for it.
But that's what you want, yeah.
There's another word for it. I don't remember. My brain's fucking mush right now. I just woke up.
Another word for tea?
No, just the type of tea. What is it called?
That's always what I ask for.
Not like Old English or something? I don't know.
I don't know, yeah. You usually just say English breakfast. That's just what I've said my whole life. Not even a breakfast. It doesn't have to be a breakfast. It's just the name. Yeah, it's just whatever.
Anyways, my roommate makes tea, and so I had some. But what I did is I just put 1 ice cube in my tea. So it wasn't like an iced tea. It was just, I got it to be a drinkable temperature sooner. Sometimes I'll do that if my soup is too hot.
You put ice into your soup?
If it's too hot, yeah. Because I don't like to wait for things to cool down.
Okay, yeah, I've never heard of that.
Is that illegal in the UK? Are you allowed to do that?
It feels illegal, you know? I'm not going to pass a judgment, but something about that, it feels intuitively wrong. I got to admit. It's just, what? Doesn't it just melt instantly if you're dropping an ice cube in your tea?
Earl Grey was what the word I was looking for. Is that the same as English breakfast or no?
Oh, Earl Grey. No, that's not the same. No, because it would be. Most people don't have English breakfast without any milk.
Okay.
Or I guess what in America they say cream.
Well, then that would cool it down.
Yeah, I think that's what does it.
But you didn't.
Is if you have a drop of milk. But no, I often drink it black. You know what I'm saying? Some of my coffee. Yeah, no, keep it simple.
And now you've injured yourself.
Now I'm injured. I'm swollen and scared.
So we will talk about Rogue One at some point, but we also watched. There's a fuck ton of TV shows out. We watched a couple of them.
So many.
We had a lot to choose from. We're slowly making our way through a bunch of other ones. Halo is not something I could.
I haven't been prioritizing it. I've chipped 3 episodes. I've got to the Reach episode. Then I stopped.
I think
I haven't continued since then.
I think I finished 2 episodes, and I think I finished 4 episodes of the Fallout show.
Okay, yeah, I finished Fallout.
But there were 2 shows that I found really easy to binge, and just kind of plowed through them. One of them was Baby Reindeer, and Alex saw that as well. What did you think?
It's huge, first of all. This must be one of the biggest Netflix shows in a while as far as zeitgeist capturing that conversation. But going that meta element of exploding past the show and it becoming just part of a pop culture conversation. Yeah, I agree. It is fairly bingeable. It's watchable. It's short. I know the main characters are Scottish, but British in its sensibilities and that awkward kind of cringe nature it's presenting. And yeah, it takes a few episodes to reveal the intimate, honest character study it's going for. Because I don't know about you, but for the first couple episodes, this lead character, this struggling comedian, Richard Gadd, who works in a pub and he's trying to find his way. There's something frustrating about this character and how like aimless or how self-sabotagey he is. And it's intentionally framed that way to try and, you know, present this person to you and this insane situation involving this stalker character and untangle this web and try and basically like psychoanalyze himself and try and assess these past traumas and this like roller coaster ride of his life and try and figure out how he's gotten to the mess he's in. And you're right there with the character, so it is kind of frustrating at first, but the more you learn about him, the more he opens up and the more you learn about his relationships with people and what he's been hiding. And yeah, it turns into quite an honest like deconstruction of his life. And before we go,
spoiler discussion
beyond that, I'm glad you said it, because I don't even know how to dance around it at this point. I feel like a lot of people have already seen this too at this point. It's so popular and it's exploding into...
It's easy to watch.
It's very easy to watch. It's shareable. There's It's
short for a series.
I don't... Yeah, it is short. But I don't know if I was trying to rack my brain for something like this that is kind of wound up being an unintentional expose of sorts. Because, like, how do you dance around the fact that this is based on a true story? And I don't know about you, but I'm so kind of prepared at this point that when I see that prefacing any TV show or movie, I don't really believe it for the most part, or see it more as like a marketing thing.
Yeah. I always kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
That even if there are elements of truth to a story, you have to expect that there's going to be some things that are embellished, it's exaggerated, told out of order. Like you're making a dramatic narrative out of allegedly an existing story, and so you like there's very few stories that would exist that would have the same cinematic beats that you would want to present in your show like that.
No. And I don't know, there were scenes that were kind of ringing like, they didn't seem literal, but they came across like that feeling you have when you've had some kind of confrontation or something happen in your life where you're thinking after the fact, man, I wish I could have summarized this or said this at that time.
Like, what if this happened?
I get that kind of feeling from some... Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really take it as literal as that, but then in going back to the expose kind of nature of it, this lead character, or this lead, I guess, antagonist that is framed as the stalker of Richard Gadd.
Martha,
yeah. Who is this... She's like the big mystery of the show and is the stalker character that everyone's kind of like talking about. And I can't keep dancing around the Piers Morgan thing. I've got to go there because it's so distracting to me. It's so just like... it's so like... So yeah, the show comes out, everyone sees it. There's this whole kind of Me Too-ish episode and this whole angle. And just, talking about the true story elements and framing it as that and not trying to hide that and not, I don't know, like really leaning into that side of it. And then, well, of course, Piers Morgan out of everybody, because of how popular this is, because of it trending on TikTok and people turning, like kind of going on these witch hunts down to try and find the real people it's based on and actually getting results. So it only took like a matter of days for people to find the real Martha, quote unquote. And it wasn't that difficult because then when you contrast the woman Piers Morgan found and put on the show with the actor they chose to play the same person.
Yeah, it's like the same person.
Both with a Scottish accent, kind of like, it's like there's a very intentional like casting decision going on there with the way they casted this character and presented her. Which does make me question, like, man, it's just something about Netflix to me, and especially since the 13 Reasons Why kind of drama, which wasn't even based on anything real, but there was the real life kind of consequence of them presenting these heavy subjects the ham-fisted way that they did with that show. I think this is a lot better made than that, but that's where my mind around this show is kind of sitting and what I'm thinking about the most is this kind of confusing moral ambiguity with how they approached it, but then also the battle in my head of like, well, this is his story. It's well written. It was a play before being adapted into the show, and he'd toured with it, and it's clearly connecting with people, and people want to hear it, and there's lots of really self-deprecating, honest dialogue, and it is entertaining the whole way through. It's creative. There's so much going on. But yeah, I can't get over that, or like I just haven't really experienced a piece of media that is riding that line for me in a few certain ways.
Yeah, it kind of the show is kind of continuing outside into reality. Like it's not over. The story is still going, kind of.
Yeah, and especially if like a big part of the show is kind of, it's not trying to simplify these complex relationships that are being established, or like frame someone as an obvious villain or an obvious good guy. It's trying to figure out like go into the psychology of these people and try and add a bit of grayness to do that. And then I don't know, just have this witch hunt then come in after it. It's just so, there's something off about it to me, the way it feels. It just doesn't sit right. And he hasn't said anything since it's come out. And in the Piers Morgan interviews, it was going all about, they were focusing on the details as far as like, well, this didn't happen in the show, and they're claiming it did happen in the show, but then the woman in the interviews is like, she can't keep her story straight, and she's saying, oh, I didn't watch the show, but then she's referencing things that happen in the show, and it's like just this huge mess that just feels like...
Yeah, she wasn't very convincing.
No.
But at the same time, I'll I'm the type of person where I'm comfortable saying I don't know something. That seems like crazy talk to so many fucking people, especially on the internet.
I know.
Where you can hear different sides of a story and not come up with a confident, hard conclusion about things and say, you know what, I'm going to wait and see how the court case goes, and that might be interesting. Here's what we do know, but we have no idea because we weren't there, right? So I'm not willing to say like, oh yeah, the entire thing was true, or the entire thing wasn't true, or, parts of, like, I'd imagine, just the nature of doing a true story adapted into a narrative, you have to embellish some things. But, like, to the degree of whether or not the premise or point or framing was dishonest, I don't know. And to the degree of whether or not someone like Martha would have a case against the show to sue, and that would also not only it include how she was represented in the show, but it would include exactly what the laws are in the UK for things like defamation or slander or whichever libel or whichever one it falls under. I think that there's different words for if it's spoken versus written, or
it's difficult too. And then there must be nuggets of truth in there, because the reason I think people found her from taking, it's part of the show that she's emailing Richard like 40,000 times and texting him all the time, and I think that's how people found
her through social media.
They found a Twitter account. Yeah, they were like searching these similar phrases and whatnot. And, got results.
Which is funny because, like, according to the show and Netflix, they were like, okay, we've taken enough steps to make sure you can't trace it back to the real person. Which I think they said, or at least Piers Morgan says that they said, but I didn't trace it back.
That has been said, yeah.
So they clearly didn't do a good enough job at that, or were just really naive about what people would be able to search, or maybe how big the show was going to be.
Yeah, it strikes me as naivety for sure. I don't know how you'd anticipate that level of popularity, but then the buck kind of does stop at Netflix to me, where it's like, well, I mean, it is your responsibility, right? If that has to always be an option on the cards, that something might blow up to this kind of popularity and people go insane for shows that aren't based on true stories, and send people death threats and dox actors and all sorts of craziness. So like that, and this is like on a next level, going back to that expose kind of part in the whole like Me Too episode in the middle there, that gives a bunch of like context and delves into the backstory of the character, partially why and where he ends up the place he does.
Yeah,
there are individuals being targeted, like, and
for sure,
with like the actor in the show being referenced as like an allusion to who the real kind of pest was in reality, and people are being sent death threats, and the wrong people are being sent death threats. And it's like, this whole like vigilante witch hunt thing is like, I don't know, something real.
I couldn't imagine myself ever participating in something like that.
No, it's insane to me, but it's a human behavior that just happens time and time again. And
people just do it.
Yeah, I don't know. They must think makes them. They're helping somehow this to undo a wrong, or yeah, I don't know. But like this has happened, but it's happened before, like right where big witch hunts go down on Reddit or whatever, and they find the wrong person, and
Boston bomber,
bad things. Yeah, really bad things wind up happening. Exactly.
Yeah, the whole, I don't know, internet detective thing. I think we've seen enough examples of it going wrong.
Exactly, yeah.
If you're I don't know. I'm trying to think about it. It depends on what you're doing, right? Because in some ways I was doing that sort of thing with like research in my Kimba video. But unless the person like wrote a book,
but the allegation, like compare the allegations. There,
yeah, I know. Well, I mean, some people took that very seriously too.
True. Yeah, that's exactly the problem. Yeah,
but like depending on the severity of like how someone was involved, like I blurred the overwhelming majority of people's names and shit because I understood. Like I don't want people to go over someone just for saying something dumb and getting a bunch of retweets. But if someone's name is already like if they're literally doing TED Talks and writing books, it would be weird to not include their name. Yeah, it's a very tricky thing to come to terms with, but I'm very excited over how the court case goes. But I think we'll all need to keep in mind exactly how the legal system even functions, and unfortunately, just people are fucking dumb. There's going to be a lot of people talking on this saying very confident, conclusive things without even having any idea how the legal system in the UK works. And that's going to be frustrating for me.
Oh, yeah, it's frustrating for me. I live here and I barely know how the defamation laws work or whatever. But there's also the whole element of the character of Martha within the show is actually arrested and put away. So if that was a real thing that happened, surely there'd be some kind of fairly easy to find record of that.
Yeah, but I think in the UK you have to make some sort of like formal request for those records. So in the US you can literally just like search up inmates. Like if someone's had like an arrest record, you can just be like, "Ooh, I found you," just as long as you have their name. Whereas like I don't think that that's the same in the UK. I think that there's a different system that you would need to go through, and I don't think that the average person can just easily access it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But that would be an interesting thing to find out, and it would be cool for someone to do like an actual breakdown. Maybe, I don't know, like you can't get Legal Eagle because he's not in the UK, so he's not as familiar with that system. But if there's any kind of like expert that maybe we could defer to that's not like Pierce Morgan, it would be great.
I know, yeah. It's very weird seeing that. Like he's done multiple videos now around this drama. It's like, I guess, considered British news / politics. And you got big YouTubers coming out, the Critical Drinker.
I was just going to mention that. That was my favorite. He loves him. He loves the Critical Drinker. He considers him to be like the most important pop culture commentator. And so he just got them on this panel, like 6 different people talking about like the real life legal ramifications of Baby Reindeer, and then like 2 or 3 times Pierce will be like, so Critical Drinker, why do you think this show is popular? Really awkward, just like trying to make him feel like he's there for any particular reason at all. Like, to be fair, I would have been just as awkward on that panel because I would have had no reaon to be there either.
Of course.
It was just like no reason why he was there.
I was trying to figure out like why him? Is it just because he's Scottish?
He's been on Pierce Morgan before. Pierce loves him.
Yeah, he's been on before, and he's like in that circle, I guess, now, and the Scottish. So, I guess that's it. Yeah, very unusual.
He's a trusted source to gauge how people feel about media. in
Yeah, I
general.
guess. Yeah. So, can you think of any example where there is this overlap to where you can't really disconnect it like this? Because that's kind of where I'm struggling right now. It's like I find it hard to separate when the actual show is the story, is life. There's a bunch of, I don't know. It's hard not to call them like accusations or,
Yeah,
charged.
there's been a good chunk of like true crime stuff that is, spilled its way into the public consciousness, like Making of a Murderer. There's a lot of
Mm.
people with their own like fan theories and things like, but this person did it and blah 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 blah, and like trying to do internet detective stuff there. And there's a really great miniseries on HBO called The Jinx, Robert Durst,
Mm.
and that actually just got a season 2 recently, which I'm excited to watch. Definitely recommend that. So it's not like it it's not like it hasn't happened before. Remember when Tiger King came out and people were like shitting on the woman, but like she
Yeah, yeah.
probably killed someone, or like I don't remember. Like, that was a
Mm-hmm.
huge thing though.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like true crime type things, that's probably the last time I've had these kind of thoughts in my head. I remember thinking about it around Zodiac, and there was like a little bit of a discussion of like, is there something distasteful about like kind of having this beautiful like David Fincher direction with these people that were actually brutally murdered, and it's like recreated in a certain way? And is there something distasteful or like tacky about this? And
I don't
some of
know.
these like Greengrass movies. I don't know. There is something interesting about that.
Paul Greengrass is way more distasteful. I fucking hate Paul Greengrass.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the approach and the intent and the way it comes together is quite important, and I guess that is what makes Baby Reindeer stand out. Is that kind of personal touch? It does feel honest.
Yeah.
It's just the honesty is painful and targeted.
Yeah,
And,
from how we can gauge the presentation and the overall message and what was shown, it feels like to me as a viewer that it was something that he made because he felt like he had to get something off of his chest, and like it was a real personal story to him. And I'm hoping that there wasn't like enough of it that was embellished to go against the point of what he was doing. And I'm hoping that there wasn't enough of it embellished to like contradict any kind of messaging in the series. But we just don't know. I have no idea, because art can be manipulative. Art can lie.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. But also your memories can lie. Like this might be,
And if it's well presented art,
yeah, exactly. This might be just how he remembers it too.
Mm.
Like there's always like the two perspectives or the multiple perspectives of stories, and doesn't mean either's inherently wrong. It is complicated, but I don't know. I find it tough because it's also like countless writers, countless creatives do take their pain and misery and channel it into something expressive. And it's not always, it doesn't always have to be so like literal and be like an expose. It's like how you package it and how punchy do you want? Do you want the point of it to be like this is a bear just holding up a mirror, unflinching, uncomfortable, like way of presenting this, like the show chooses to go through. Like it doesn't really try to. It's very literal. It doesn't really package up things in a way that leaves things open for interpretation. It's trying to give you answers. It's trying to show you everything. It's artful in ways, but it is literal for the most part. And I don't know if that necessarily is my favorite way of channeling those kind of feelings. And I don't know. It's just that middle episode in particular. I was going to ask this question to you and how, like, your feelings around how that episode in particular was presented, where I was trying to think of the best way to phrase it. 'Cause you know how we were talking about in Challenges in a completely opposite, inverse way? The kind of lack of more the implication of not violence in that case, but sexuality or just implying something to have happened, whether that be sex or violence or whatever, as a rule is kind of more effective to me. And I feel like in that episode in the middle, the big one, I feel like there was enough kind of implication going on, and there wasn't really much mystery, and I already felt like I was facing the ugliness and gravity of the situation, and I had a good idea of what it was trying to say. And I couldn't help but feel like, is this getting gratuitous? Was that the point? Are you trying to make me feel this exact way? I don't know.
I don't think it got so far into being gratuitous. I thought it handled it pretty well.
It's about that line for me. Yeah.
It was disturbing.
I just had this feeling where it was definitely disturbing. And there was a point, I think it was just where it chose to cut for me, where I felt like there was a point where it did cut, and I felt like that really communicated the visceral, like, horror of what you're showing. And then it kept going. I don't know, I feel like I'm tripping over myself a little bit with how I'm trying to explain this, because I don't want it to sound like just purely like a puritanical... No, after that. That's kind of what I'm saying, where I'm like, all of this, what you're talking about and presenting, you're implying that we've gotten to this point and that this has been happening anyway. I don't know if we had to really show it quite to that degree. I don't know.
Which part?
I'm torn on that myself. Past the finger part, when he's like, I don't know, like, it just straight up shows the assault.
Mm-hmm.
Then he like blacks out. He comes back from blacking out. It shows it more.
Yeah, but I'm from that. If someone has such a like traumatic memory that they feel like they need to express, I feel like the brutality of showing it can be not only more effective, but like it's a part of the catharsis. If this is a thing that person experienced, right? Like, I think it's important to show things without kind of like beating around the bush and making something horrific so that people understand what it's like from their perspective, and maybe other people who have experienced the same thing feel more connected to it. You know, that episode had an actual trigger warning at the beginning of it.
It had a big warning, yeah.
Which I'm glad I looked away from for a second. Boyfriend was like, "Oh, did you see that?" I was like, "Oh, wait." I looked away for a second. He's like, "Okay, good," because it's kind of a spoiler. I'm like, "Oh." But,
right, yeah. There's something about that that's really interesting, because I really can see both perspectives, and I feel like I've seen these kind of subject matters just explored in a way that just connected with me more, where, yeah, it just resonated with me more, as opposed to, I don't know, there's something kind of messy about this to me, and his life is messy, and he's a messy person. I don't know, there was something about that. I can't say that was kind of going through my head during that episode.
Okay. I didn't really have an issue with how they showed any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it got its point across, and it did it in like an emotionally effective way. Yeah, this is a show that, you know, there's not many shows or films where I feel as though like a voiceover narration is a benefit, but I feel like it was well written, and I feel like what they showed and how they showed it was thoughtful and emotionally effective. I was really pleasantly surprised with this. It had like a very like intentional cinematography. You know, there were good transitions. It was clearly storyboarded in some way. It was planned out very well. It flowed really well. The pacing was great. It was really easy and digestible to watch. Great music choices, great performances. Yeah, like the beats of the story and like the certain monologues that appear, and I think that it hit what it was trying to emotionally for me, for the most part, for sure. And I also really loved the awkward humor and bad stand-up and the fucking...
Yeah, the cringe comedy rocks.
Yeah, lots of cringe comedy that I love.
Yeah, it balances that quite well, because I don't know, without, it feels weird to even like criticize if it is based on someone's real life or true story, but just tonally having him being this kind of struggling comedian, it does add this sort of levity against this really horrifying thing that's happening to him on multiple different levels. So it's nice to have that kind of awkward levity now and again. But yeah, I do like with the pacing. I like how there's not a rigidity to the length of the episodes.
True.
I like when a series can do that, where I think like the longest episode might be the one right in the middle there with the flashback and everything. But then there'll be an episode that will be like nearly an hour, but then another one might be 30 minutes or 40. It's just what the pace dictates. And the Curse did this as well, actually. I like that the freedom within that TV format allows you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it does definitely help with the pacing and makes it bingeable. I got to shout out though the Martha actor. I thought was incredible.
Yeah, she was great.
The performance was quite layered and really kind of held the show together for me. As far as like that character could not be two-dimensional. That Martha character had to be some depth to that performance. There had to be some like mystery. There has to be the oppressive, like fearful nature there, and what she's doing is wrong and everything. But they don't hide from trying to, peel back the curtain and see what's going on. They visit her house at one point and they delve into her psychology a little bit, or at least imply from Gad's perspective what he might think is the reason as to how she is or why she is. And yeah, that's also a good observation. The perspective and the narration, and it kind of just being so centered and focused on Richard Gad the entire time. It's like rooted on him. It's told from his perspective, and the way it is jumping through time and delivering it is just like really organized and focused through him. But then, I don't know, I feel like I got more kind of nitpicks and problems with this show than you, but he has this relationship with his character Terry, which is like another major character, one of the major three, I'd say. But I think it's a good, interesting character and is really crucial for the story Gad's trying to tell, but there were just some parts of that performance that were not working for me on that Terry character.
Which one is Terry?
The trans character.
Okay.
That he kind of falls for and has the tension with.
I don't know. Yeah, I heard someone else say that too. I didn't get that out of it, but you're not the only person I've heard say
I don't
that.
know. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just simply they've got like an American accent.
Oh.
I don't know if it's just like the contrast with the. But that shouldn't be an issue anyway, because I don't know. I can tell when an American accent is contrasting against an English one or a Scottish one, and it
Interesting.
not working. But there was just something about the performance was just not fully working for me. I liked that character and what it brought out of the lead, and the dynamics there created a lot of tension, and it gave him something to strive for and learn about himself. But like, yeah, that character didn't have or that actor didn't quite bring just wasn't on the same level as Richard Gad or Jessica Gunning.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with any of the performances personally, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think what really does prop it up though is the dialogue. There's a lot of really good dialogue, and I keep going back to that word honest or honesty, and it does feel like this is a man who has gone through a lot and kind of is self-aware enough to understand and assess, well, somewhat truthfully from what we can tell. It feels honest or truthful anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the way he talks about himself and the things he's learned about himself is like, man, that takes courage to admit some of the stuff you're admitting, like just barefaced. If this is a true story, like there is something impressive and kind of honorable about that, which is at like the core. And yeah, there's some pretty like biting dialogue and some really like spine-chilling stuff as well. That even though there are points that kind of feel embellished, there is also this underlying like believability as well to the way it's written.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to like that Martha character, and some of the things she says are just like so creepy. Like just the name of the show, like calling it Baby Reindeer, and these kind of tics this character has where she's sending these texts constantly that aren't even from an iPhone, but including that it's sent from an iPhone in every one of these messages. And it's like, this is fascinating from a psychological perspective, but it is also scary. It is horrifying, and it is well presented. Yeah, there were lots of good moments of, especially like lighting and using sets really well. Or in that mid episode, not you can't say mid, like midpoint episode. I was talking about there's like a lot of drug use and a lot of like, you know, because it's rooted to this character, you're there with his perception, and when he is kind of on a certain drug or whatever, it's creatively presented. They're changing up the lighting, they're going handheld, they're being creative with it. Yeah, and there's a lot of good stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it handled that really well, and like the performances do a lot too. Just the way that the character looks and how they act, like on a certain substance. Yeah, I really enjoyed the dialogue as well. I wrote down one of the lines that I found just kind of like stuck in my brain when he was calling them Pilsner misogynists. It's almost like kind of like, you know, he's already going on to the next point. The writing kind of reminded me a bit of like Train Spotting in terms of how it was presented and used in the story, especially. It had that same kind of energy with the narration, and
especially with the Scottish character as well,
how things flowed. Yeah. So we should probably wrap up this discussion pretty soon because we got a bunch of other stuff to talk about. But any other question or comments you want to make? Because
I want to shout out the scene where he comes out to his parents.
That was great.
To me, that was one of the most emotionally affecting scenes, especially with like his dad's response and how kind of like cold, and you know, there's just something very emotionally effective about that scene.
It's kind of like cathartic.
Yeah, and yeah, cathartic's a good way of putting it. A lot of it does feel like that. But yeah, I've got messy thoughts on this. Kind of like, I did enjoy it. I did like take a break for a couple days in the middle, and didn't like binge the whole thing, because that middle episode is like putrid, in a completely intended way, and yeah, it's interesting how it's bringing up these conversations and it has people talking about consent, trauma, stalking, what drives people to do these things, and the repercussions or lack thereof of them. But yeah, there's something about this that's just like lingering me in a way I don't know how to really pick apart fully.
Yeah.
So if I had to give this like a score for now, it would be like a high 7 out of 10, 3.5 star. I think this was good. I just that intersection of when it becomes like real, and it like goes beyond fiction. And yeah, people getting sent death threats.
Yeah,
this real Martha woman coming out, and there's something very weird about that. And I don't know if I really blame the writer director Gad for this. I think that is more of like a Netflix. The buck stops with them, but
that would be like a legal counsel issue.
Exactly. Yeah, but yeah, quite complicated thoughts on this.
It was a great watch. I'm glad I saw it. I watched it over the course of like a few days, but it was really super easily digestible, and just really, it was just a great thing to get through, and time flew by. I was like, wow, the episode's over. Like it's just really well paced and really good story and really well presented. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. Loved it, and
hell yeah,
we'll see if a court case is even happening, because she could just be lying that she's even doing that.
Exactly, yeah.
We don't even know. But if a court case is happening, that would be very interesting. And surely it doesn't do her any favors for her to have said all those things on Pierce Morgan, because now that's gonna be in.
No.
It's gonna be in the fucking case now, you know. So we'll see what happens. Who the fuck knows? But it's interesting, and part of me hopes for there to be something a bit more conclusive on these weird real life moments that have spilled out from the show. But we don't know. We don't know if that's ever going to happen. Maybe she'll get her own fucking reality show.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll start doing cameos.
I think they need to be careful. Yeah. They just need to be careful when it's kind of like the show is about how this guy has been like abused by, something bigger than him or above him. And then for that to kind of happen just because of the popularity of the show to somebody else, not in the same like literal way, but you know what I'm saying? Like just communicating this misery. And it's like, well, is this propagating it? Is this actually solving anything? Is this a positive conversation? Are we taking away the right things from this? Or are we just enjoying the like witch hunt and the exposure of this? Like, I hope we take away the right things from this.
And we never will. The Curse is the new Nathan Fielder, Benny Safdie, Emma Stone joint. And it's fucking crazy. I loved it. It's my favorite show I've seen in a while. Spoiler discussion. Everybody go see it. It's on Showtime. There's 10 episodes. It's like the whole thing's like 9 hours long. It's delightfully awkward. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, speaking of cringe comedy, woo! I gotta say, man, Nathan Fielder coming in here. He's coming for that. He's coming for the crown. He's coming for the awkward comedy crown. I thought the Brits had it locked. I thought we had that locked. But he's come in and he is. I don't know, from the small handful of projects I've seen from him, he's Nathan Few, The Rehearsal. Did we talk about that in the end?
I don't think we
incredible.
Did have a full conversation on The Rehearsal. I think that was always kind of on the back burner of things we could see.
Yeah.
And I think we were maybe waiting for Ralph to see it when he was on the podcast. I don't remember what.
That's right. That sounds right. Yeah. But of course, they're not like a narrative in the same way. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
more of like a direct comedy. This is a full on like, he's written a story, he's directing episodes of a narrative with Benny Safdie.
Everything's acted this time.
Exactly, yeah. He's playing a character. Not that he's not playing a character in the other things, but you know what I'm saying.
He directed a few of the episodes too.
Mm-hmm. And did a
really well,
wonderful job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm actually really impressed.
Yeah, this is extremely unique because that cringe comedy that I think. I was just not expected to be reminded of things like a Peep Show or like these awkward British sitcoms, which you can find examples of and you can feel that. But this combination is it seems so obvious now that it would work. But having Benny Safdie and Nathan Fielder combining that like cringe comedy and that awkwardness that Nathan Fielder can bring with the like claustrophobic like tension, like the Safdie bros are so good at that tension and that the uneasy feeling,
uneasy, stressful,
that building to something you don't know what's coming. That combination is something real unique that especially by the last episode is I've never seen anything like this before, the way they're exploring this. And man, they explore a lot with these three characters, like the themes they're pulling out, the things they're mocking, the whole idea of Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone, who we haven't even mentioned yet, who's also fantastic. These three leads are such interesting, it's like another character study thing going on here with these three. Just, they're so, they're nasty. They're kind of pieces of work and have like very little self-awareness, like contrasting with Baby Reindeer. These three lead characters are like a mess. Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone are these like stereotypical, especially Emma Stone, like California, like Emma Stone's the daughter to these rich parents who are like landlords who have like multiple buildings all over, and she's
casino.
Kind of trying to rebel against that. And Nathan Fielder like used to work in a casino, and now they have this whole kind of like performative eco housing show they're trying to like get together and make work, which is what Benny Safdie.
Yeah, fliplanthropy.
That's right.
We're flipping a house, but we're doing philanthropy. So they have this.
Which eventually becomes the Green Queen. Yeah.
They have this concept where they're trying to I guess gentrify a neighborhood in what was it, in New Mexico?
New Mexico, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and they've designed these houses that are supposed to be like carbon neutral, where they're made out of mirrors that reflect the light away from the home. And so it's, if you can't leave the door open and you can't have air conditioning, otherwise it won't be carbon neutral anymore. And it's very important for them, just for the sake of the show that they're trying to pitch and sell, for their own image and ego, essentially, to make it seem as though they're helping people in the community when they're not, when they're just making things more awkward and making things more inconvenient and worse for other people. And this entire facade that they're putting on of trying to appear outwardly philanthropic,
Yeah.
when in reality it's just purely for self-interest and to boost their image and their own egos and sense of self-worth. And it's super interesting, and I love how these characters are explored, and I love how the ideas are explored thematically. There's like a lot of recurring ideas of, you know, there's a bunch of like Native American characters that show up, and there's like that art piece of her in the teepee and like asking what it means. And you know, I tied in together these ideas of like, okay, there's like the casino and Emma Stone, her parents, like she's obviously coming from a lot of like wealth and privilege and generational inheritance. And there's even points throughout the show where we see her literally like, oh, I'm just going to borrow like $400,000. Wait, he doesn't even call it a loan. Her dad doesn't even call it a loan. He's like, oh, well, you know, if you really want to pay it back, blah, blah, blah.
He just makes fun of it. Yeah, yeah.
And she's wearing a hat, so she's not seen like going with him to collect this money from the bank. She's trying to hide this and make it seem like she's doing something herself, but in reality, she's got this head start that no other people around her do. But at the same time, she's trying to like ignore it, and she's trying to pretend otherwise. And it's like, okay, well, that's, to me, that seems like a very clear parallel to like the generational inheritance of, you know, cultures and you know, colonization of the United States, et cetera, et cetera. And so I found those statements and the way that they're worked into the show very interesting and very effective. And it gave me a lot to chew on over the course of the film. And damn, I love movies, and especially like a show where there is a consistent and effective and purposeful style. So something like the Safdie brothers' Good Time, that's a film where you can notice that the cinematography is really tight. So tight that it has to be an intentional choice. And it's not just, it's not like Eli Roth's Borderlands where he forgot to film a wide shot. It's, oh, you're going so intentionally close to say something about the tone of the film, to say something about the characters, to show an emotion and an experience through the medium of filmmaking, through storytelling and how things are presented, how things are framed. In that same sense, this show is like the inverse in terms of how it's shot. Everything is so distant. Everything is filmed from super far away that throughout the entire show, every single episode, like pretty much every single shot, you can see there's like action happening basically out of focus in the foreground. Like they won't just shoot something from far away. They'll make sure there's like a plant or a tree or a fence or characters or something closer to the frame that isn't the focus of the shot, but is there to help create that consistent tone and feeling. And so for a show, you have several different directors over the course of an entire series. There was an episode directed by the Zellner brothers. Some of them were directed by Nathan. There's a bunch of other directors. And I love seeing a show with such a consistent voice and style where it's clear that the showrunners, it was written by Nathan and Benny, and so I think they're both the showrunners. They gave enough instruction and had enough rules in place that no matter who's directing an episode, it's still told with that same style, with that same consistency.
Yeah.
And it helps to communicate the ideas and the feelings that are found consistently throughout the show. I love seeing something like that, and I love when it feels like it's purposeful and it's adding something to it, and it's not just a random choice.
The visual expression is very creative. Like just from you talking just then, there are two major scenes that just flash into my mind with like the images of what they did. Like, do you remember the scene where Nathan? Let me get the actual characters' names. Nathan is Asher.
Yes.
Betty Safdie is Dougie. Asher and Dougie, who are like longtime friends, they go out for a meal. This really awkward meal where they keep talking about this. There's this ongoing thing with the chicken, and we haven't got to the curse and explaining what that is yet. But there's some tension between these characters, and the way it's shot is they're dancing between these two angles, and when the camera is on the Dougie character, who kind of has the control in the situation, is more of like he's more of an outgoing presence who has more control over the scene. He's in the background, like moving the chess pieces, trying to manipulate people basically to make this show into something, to get more gigs in the work he's doing. But in these two angles that they're cutting between, when they're showing Nathan's character of Asher, they frame the shots of him through what looks like just these bars in the other end of the room that evoke like prison bars. And when it cuts back to Dougie, there's nothing obscuring him at all, just to kind of make you feel the tension between these characters. Perhaps he feels trapped, or in that incredible last episode where there's a shot of overhead of from when Asher's in the tree stuck there, and it's looking down at Dougie. There's like the shot is framed through a tree branch, but there's this very intentional piece of tree branch that keeps covering Dougie's face, and he's like intentionally kind of standing behind it again and again to kind of emphasize like he's not seeing Asher right now. He's not listening to him. That's how these characters. It just really like visually summarizes these character dynamics. And that's just two examples that pop into my head right now, that every episode is full of those. Every scene is so like thoughtful, and there's intent to all of it. And there's normally some kind of like payoff or return to an idea that's like, oh, that wasn't just a funny gag. You've like turned this into some kind of commentary or something. Like the native artist you're talking about, there's this whole really awkward gag where the Dougie character has like he's like flirting with her a little bit and finds he's texted this picture about this mini golf course nearby that has this like racist caricature of a Native American in this like golf course that they're joking about. And Emma Stone thinks it's a good idea to go and buy it and kind of pull this prank on the artist by like leaving it outside of her door and ringing the bell and like hiding behind the corner, which you get like an incredibly awkward, horrible like scene from, an attempt at humor from her. And it's like, that accentuates how just out of touch she is. How every scene of her where she's interacting, especially with those characters and other artists, it's like, I love that other character who's like mocking her when she, gate crashes that lunch they're enjoying, and her friend like starts pretending to do like the stereotypical stuff, just like mocking her to her face.
With her.
Like, yeah, that was like really funny to me. But the mini golf racist statue or whatever, just the way that's like wrapped up with the garbage truck like crushing it up and the title card coming over it, and it doesn't need to over-explain or over-indulge what it's getting at. It's all like, they just say enough dialogue, they just express enough with the characters, you can pick up what it's putting down without it feeling like too much, without it feeling like you're indulging to the point where you're like ruining the fun of this. Because there's also the whole ongoing theme of like, how far do you push art to make your point? That's kind of like the whole structure of the show, right? That's what Dougie's doing. He's like pushing these characters to try and make something interesting out of the show. They're all like pushing, and that last episode just being like a complete left field, like just how do you even describe it? Just Asher just wakes up and he's like, gravity's inverted for him.
Yeah.
And that just comes out of nowhere in the 10th episode. There's like vague setup, but only in terms of like, yeah, sometimes you got to make an extreme point to prove your art. It's like mentioned previous episodes ago. But it's not like they're setting up, oh, there's a device or the curse, that's part of the curse. And we've gone and done the research and there's the backstory for the curse and it makes gravity turn off. That's not important.
It wasn't over-explained or anything. It's legitimately just catches you off guard.
Exactly, yeah. In a way that was kind of reminding me of Magnolia with the frog thing.
Yeah.
Even though that was like directly alluded to, it's more like what it brings out of this immediate set of characters and like forces them in a moment through something so extreme happening, they will have to like face something or forced to deal with something.
Yeah. And it fits in lines. It fits in line with the ideas that I was communicating earlier. Is there's several scenes in the show. Like I would love to rewatch this. I'm sure that we'll pick up on more on a rewatch. It's definitely something you can see again, especially with the full context of everything in mind. You know, there's the scene where the guy from Captain Phillips in Good Time, the father of the cursed daughter or whatever.
Yeah.
There was that scene where they got him a chiropractor, and the chiropractor's just like, no, it's okay. Cracking his neck, and he's like, oh no, stop! I don't want to.
That
and
was
like,
horrifying.
That still fits in line with the ideas and themes of like, oh, you're doing something, saying you're helping someone, but you're making it worse. And someone is telling you that not to do it, and they're telling you what they need, but you're ignoring it. And then that exact same thing happens to Nathan Fielder's character with him being on the tree. And he's like, no, I need exactly this. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. And they're just being really patronizing and not listening to him. And that winds up being the end of his character, is him having the exact same thing he's been doing to other people. Him and Emma Stone and everyone have been doing to other people. It is just happening to him by the end of it.
Yeah, this whole like performative nature of how they conduct themselves and what they're doing, like all the way down to, I thought it was hilarious that when it eventually gets to the point where Emma Stone is pregnant, and the second it becomes a risk for their child in that stupid eco house, they like install air conditioning.
Oh yeah, they're pressurized one room. Everything's just a facade. Everything's they're just doing it for a show, and not just a show, but their life is a show. And then sometimes we even see like the reflection of the mirrors on the outside, and how it's kind of like almost like a funhouse mirror, and you see Nathan Fielder's character and it's all like warped, and it's like, okay, like the internal reflection of the character, there's something a lot more ugly there than what he's putting on for the rest of the world. And even the concept of the base concept of having these characters be trying to make a show for HGTV and having them being like, okay, yeah, we're doing such great things in this community, when they know that they're not, and they know that they're lying to themselves, and they have to do all of these fake things like, okay, we're keeping these stores open so it doesn't seem like we're gentrifying, we're paying this to be open, we don't want the cops to be called if people are stealing stuff from here. All of these phony facades that they build up around themselves to try and just have this consistent image. I think it's absolutely perfect that they chose to make these characters reality TV show personalities, because that's what a lot of reality TV show is. And that's, we were talking about Baby Reindeer. There's a reason why I'm skeptical of everything I see in media. A lot can be lied, a lot can just be easily made up. Reality TV show, especially when the whole goal of it is just to get people to click, get people to watch. So much of it is scripted, so much of it is made up. There's that whole thing where she's like, oh, that thing we did was just really funny where you took off my sweater. Let's do that again, but for social media. And then they try to recreate it, but it's just not the same. And then it's just so phony, and like, damn, it's so much of what they communicate and express through this show. It feels consistent, but it's also really fun. And I love the awkwardness, and I love the character study nature of it. And they're super interesting. And there's so much to chew on in every moment of this film, whether it's character, whether it's presentation and framing, whether it's, performance and music. It's just absolutely filled with things that I love, and I found myself glued to the show. I binged it within like 2 days. I did the first half in one day and the second half in another day. And it just flew by. Like it's something where, I never needed to like check the time, and I never felt like thinking about something else. I was just into it, locked in, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like I was just in it. I was down for what they were showing me. I was just into it.
I started off liking it and was like in love with it by the end. Because I was looking this show up after the fact, after I finished it. I was kind of disappointed by how little kind of engagement or conversations it's got broader. Like even just comparing like the numbers attached to Baby Reindeer compared to The Curse, and like how many people it seems like have seen it. I think there is something kind of inaccessible about it to a broader audience.
Yeah, it was also not on a bigger network, like fucking Showtime.
Yeah.
It should have been on HBO, honestly.
Yeah, and it's for some reason, it should have been on HBO. I had to watch it on Paramount Plus in the UK, whatever that means. So yeah, it is a shame it's kind of been like buried or hidden the way it is, and I suppose, I don't know, it inherently kind of appeals to a certain type of person already. But yeah, I think it was by like episode 2 or 3 where I kind of understood the tone, the pace it was going for, that awkwardness and what it's building to, what it is exploring. It's not that I never disliked it. It was just more like trying to figure out where it was going, what it was doing, knowing that it is, nearly 10 hours long. It's just like a different structure, I guess, especially for like a safety thing, a half safety thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for people that aren't, for people that aren't like in love with the same things that we might be, right? That aren't the average person, and it's the average person watching something isn't going to be thinking about things like the way that a shot is framed. They're really not.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing things like that, and I love connecting these puzzle pieces in a way where everything fits, and it fits exactly for the story that they're trying to tell. And so, to a lot of people, they might just see the show and they might just not pick up on like the ironic nature, or they might just see it as like a lot of talking, because it is a lot of talking.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's mostly just like the entire thing's just dialogue, aside from some moments in the final episode. But
yeah, and it's very rewarding if that's up your alley and you are paying attention. I just couldn't help but think about someone putting this on and watching the first episode and maybe expecting something a little bit different. Because the only thing I knew about this before going in was that Nathan Fielder was in it and he has a micro penis. That's all I knew.
That's funny that you knew that
about the whole show. I don't even know how I knew that.
Yeah, I was about to say. I told you.
But I knew that. I knew that one fact, but that was it. And I had other people I was talking about it to when I started watching it, and they thought it was like a horror thing because of the name, The Curse. I was like, oh, when's it going to become like a horror?
Well, it kind of is. It like teases it.
Yeah.
It's like a psychological horror element in the background, and you're never really sure if the curse is real.
Well, exactly, yeah. And there's that line from the Upshire Captain Phillips fellow where he's like, stop talking about the curses. Some of these things, if you just transfix on them enough, you can like you can make yourself do something or just manifest craziness. Just stop. And that is part of what makes the Nathan Fielder character so fascinating. Is it kind of breaks him. It's like little girl putting this curse on him because of him being
Who put the chicken in
Who
his
did the chicken? But it was like it was completely instigated by himself. He was being like one of those TikTok assholes that does like giving a homeless person $100.
Yeah.
And then like they stop filming and then go get it back because he didn't have change. And it's like this is the same guy in the eco house who's driving a Tesla around.
Oh yeah.
It's like
his wife can just
enforces that performative nature.
Take $400,000 from her parents at any fucking moment.
Yeah, and like just that whole scene where they're struggling to find a seller for the house, and they wind up just basically paying random people off the street to just pretend that they're buying the real house, because the only seller they can actually get is this guy who's clearly like a Republican or someone who doesn't align with Emma Stone specifically on the political
because it wouldn't look good for the show.
Like he shows up to the viewing in a big truck. Yeah, exactly. And she's like really cold to him and like won't shake his hand and like tries to I don't know, it just there's a lot of like truths to these performative ways
Yeah.
people box themselves in, or
Yeah.
like just Nathan Fielder being a micro penis like cuck guy.
It's so funny.
Props for that level of self-deprecation. Like he's the first thing he like does on this scale, and this like character he plays is like this like the worst person ever with a micro penis and as a cuck as well. And he's like, it's so self-deprecating, but what they do with it and like the psychological levels they take it like that.
Yeah.
I was dying in the comedy class stuff with him.
Hell yeah.
Like that
Comedy class
that shot where it's
great.
like where the camera's like awkwardly like tilting around or whatever. And he's like waiting his turn in this like really awkward improv class. And just his purposefully awful timing of like trying to make the class laugh. It's like so cringeworthy.
He's so good at what he
awesome.
does.
That's straight out of Peep Show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everybody like gets offended by it, and then the
and then gets kicked out. Yeah.
comedy teacher is egging him on, but then later tries to pass the blame onto him. He's like, "Well, I don't know. It was you. You made people uncomfortable."
And I gotta say, I was really impressed with Nathan Fielder's performance. Actually, like in the scenes where he had to bring out like a real level of like frustration and angst.
Yeah.
And like anger, he was really good at doing that. Like in that scene with the comedy instructor where like he can't hold it in anymore and he like breaks. And there's a few moments in the show like that, like his performance where he leaves the show after the screening of their reality show, and he leaves the room and comes back in and has this like pitiful speech to Emma Stone, I guess. And it's, the performance he brings out there is like so convincing, so real, and he like really committed himself to it. And it's like, I just think that trilogy of actors and those characters like bounce off each other so well, and they're bringing out just like top tier performances out of each other. So yeah, that's just a real joy to watch these, especially those three leads like bouncing off each other.
Yeah, I can see some people being like off-put by Nathan Fielder's performance. I'm kind of used to how he talks. There's a lot of like himself in there, if you're familiar with Nathan For You in The Rehearsal. But he did a really great job, and you know, like he wasn't unconvincing. He just has a weird way of talking and communicating that is like fairly consistent throughout the things that he's in.
Yeah. And even just like in that last episode on a physical level, that's like a good physical performance, him like crawling around, like selling the situation he's in. I thought that was, really well handled at the end there.
Yeah, it's super.
And how do you think the visual effects and the way they achieved that last episode, I thought was quite impressive.
It was super ambitious.
Very ambitious. And they definitely pulled it off.
And Nathan directed that episode too. Like he's really shown off. Like he had a plan. He figured out how to create those effects logistically in ways that are super convincing and realistic and just like very impressive and like awe-inspiring just to watch.
Yeah, they really commit as well. Like having the whole reality TV show within the show, and whenever they cut to clips from the show, it's like shot like an actual reality TV show. They're using different cameras. It's like lit differently. So when they're cutting between like the actual reality TV show and then scenes of the narrative within the show, it's like letterbox. There's a different look to it, different lighting.
Oh yeah.
So it's dedicated to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, apparently they use like really like cheap digital cameras for the main sections just to give it a particular look and feel. Yeah, I looked at. I also just love the like the reeling back, like talking about the nature of how you build something that's entertaining. Like I love the sit down. This is a frictionless show, like conversation with Emma Stone, and like trying to convince her that the real story is this kind of failure of a marriage, that the mess that they've got themselves into.
that the doggy character tries to exploit.
Yeah, that's fun.
And like all the awkwardness and the humor and the tension that comes from that.
Yeah.
And like when they're just like so many like creative little details, like when they're showing the rough cut of the show, and like they're putting in little like editor's notes or like temp VO and stuff like that.
Yeah,
just these like nerdy little details that like that really sells that this is part of the process, and like you're showing this part of the process and building it into the show and making it like a meta commentary in a way, and like showing how you're basically showing every perspective of like how this was shot, how you can change the intent of like the way people say things in the moment, and how fake it can be, and how you can just be disingenuous in the same way they are.
And there is something really satisfying about seeing something come together like that you're there to see being created, even though it's like a layered fictional thing within a fictional thing. Like, you know, almost like I was going to say the title of a movie, but I guess that's a spoiler for that movie, so I won't. But you know, things that are about kind of like the production of movies within a movie, they can be so satisfying seeing things come together. There was a little, I think it was like 10 minutes. There was like a segment of the Flipanthropy pilot first look sort of thing, like the fake show on Nathan's YouTube channel, and they released it like halfway through the series, I think. You should check that out at some point if you haven't. It's on Nathan Fielder's YouTube channel. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about that. That's cool.
It's pretty funny. It's not like, you know, it's nothing that's like, oh, this is necessary to understand anything in the show or anything, so don't worry, you're not.
Just a nice, yeah.
I love how, you know, the show's called The Curse, and, you know, from episode 1 all the way through the entire series, there's this kind of underlying idea of like, is he being cursed, and did the chicken disappear, and did someone put the chicken in the thing? and I love how, you know, that serves its function narratively and emotionally to give that idea of tension, and also the humorous tension where it's like, okay, this is just kind of silly. It's just about chicken, but he's taking it so seriously. But the music is communicating something much more seriously in an ironic tone, and there's like a satirical nature to it. But I love how they even tie that concept in with the themes of, you know, the whole gentrification and philanthropy and condescension, looking down on other people who are either from a different race or impoverished, because they're so detached and out of touch. And so they wind up saying things like, you know, Emma Stone and Nathan Fielder, they go to the guy's house and they just assume, I guess because he's from a different country, allegedly, or they thought he was, like, oh, are you big into like curse stuff? Like, you like do voodoo, or I forget the exact lines, but they treated it as this whole like, you know, someone from a different culture. There's this like mysticism element where it's just like they just want to be treated like real people. Like, just stop embarrassing yourself.
Yeah, they kind of like infantilize it.
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
like they're very condescending and just so pompous and full of themselves, and while pretending not to be. And they're like, oh, we're helping you, like throughout the entire show. And it's a great exploration of character.
They're so unlikable.
And it's a perfect show for people who love learning about and exploring other people. Because I love that so much at it. Like a movie or a show can have varying degrees of, you know, purposeful cinematography or music or any element that I would consider to be, you know, like a subjective measurable quality from my own perspective. But if there's like a really meaty, interesting character there, and they're consistent and they're written in a way where I'm able to learn more about them, and they're unique and they're not me, and it's fun because they're not me, and they're so detached from the person that I am, but it feels like a real person. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that type of person. We know that type of person exists.
Yes, I was about to say the exact same thing.
And they're exploring them. I love that. I love that as like a writing exercise to try and understand and empathize with other people who you're not, and get something out of their characters, and try to approach like, what would they do in this scene? How do they act? How do they feel about the world? It's not relatable in a sense that, we don't feel like these characters. We're detached from them because there's so much wrong with them in terms of how they view the world and how they approach situations. But they do it in a consistent enough way that I'm able to feel this fun sense of like almost like maybe not quite role playing, but just like exploration of a character. I love learning about people. I love seeing people and feeling like I'm getting a real experience out of a character. And this show provides exactly that for me. It tickles that part of my brain.
Yeah, and me. They just add so much depth to these characters. So like, if you just take like Dougie, for example, it starts at like the most surface level, the costume design, the hair design. Like I love those choices with that wig, the facial hair, all the like jewelry he's wearing gives him a certain kind of like, he presents himself a certain way. Driving that sports car around.
9 rings on his hands.
Yeah, every finger has a ring. He drives his sports car around. He has this oversharing nature to him where like he does it towards the end with the fireman. He has this trauma, I guess, with his wife.
Yeah.
Who died in a car accident because he was drink driving. And that quirk he has whenever he's driving around bringing out the breathalyzer while he's driving.
It's fun to call that a quirk.
It creates well, yeah. His obsession.
Problem he has.
Yeah. Well, it's like, this is a damaged character.
Oh, very much so.
And the way it is coming out, the way it explodes in the end once he realizes that he wasn't listening to Asher in the tree, and like, going back to the oversharing thing, he like says in that moment that it's like, this was like a self-serving thing, it was for me, and it's like the first time he admits to the audience at least that there maybe is some more self-awareness buried in there that he's not really faced. And that's like a really heartbreaking, sad scene, even though these characters, they're not really built to be relatable like that, because they are just such like they're like borderline sociopaths at points with some of the stuff they're doing. But yeah, you're right. There's enough truth in there. Like I've met Dougie before, I've met Asher. I've met these people, or like hints of these people and these types of people and these kind of ways of conducting themselves, or this like performative thing people put on to try and prove themselves or to try and undo the deeds of their parents or whatever it might be. Yeah, there is so much to chew on.
Those are some of the most fun characters to explore, is a character that is putting on a performance for the rest of the world and acting completely unlike how they are on the inside, but you're given enough clues throughout their story and how they conduct themselves and how they express themselves to know that they're bullshitters and to see through the bullshit. And especially when that culminates in, we talked about Magnolia the last episode, kind of like Tom Cruise's character. It culminates eventually in seeing like a more direct and more explicit exposure of their vulnerabilities by the end of it. That's always super fun. I really enjoy that type of thing. We should talk a bit. Do you have like kind of an interpretation of the ending and what that would mean? Because I've read a few things online and I've had some conversations about it, and there seems to be some hints and deeper things and connections here and there. I just want to know.
I don't have any deep theories as to the anti-gravity thing outside of the idea of like, we've been playing with this concept of how far we'll push our art to make a point. Like with the native artist with the turkey and the cutting it off and eating it thing. I love that. Her explanation of that to Emma Stone, and that like she's trying to hide like the look of horror because she ate the meat, and after that description of her saying it's like a piece of herself, and that's like what her culture has had to experience and go through. How painful that is. But as far as I don't know. To be honest, as far as like what that means beyond, he I don't know, he seemed to kind of be like living a lie. He's not being able to face his reality, so being like just pulled out of it, and it seemed to me like a fun, creative way to mostly force these characters to come to terms with something. And I'm curious though, like what you've read about this or what you've thought about this. I only finished this a couple of days ago, so I'm still thinking about it and breaking it down. Yeah.
So there's a few different discussions online. Some people are theorizing that Asher got reincarnated as the baby. And I think that I
Right.
can see why people believe that. There's, a few different moments in the show, like when they're with the, what is it, an OBGYN or whatever, where they're with the doctor and they're like discussing her like first pregnancy and stuff. And then Nathan's like, I could be the baby. I'm a baby. Like he says, there's like 3 or 4 different
Oh
points
yeah.
throughout the show where he's like talking about being a baby. And in those moments, you kind of just assume like, okay, this is just kind of like a funny,
Like an awkward attempt at humor.
awkward cringe moment where he's like being uncomfortable. And then people are kind of like trying to tie that into that. I don't think that I guess there's room for it in the sense that like it doesn't explicitly state it either way. My interpretation wouldn't be that he is literally reincarnated as the baby, but that for Emma Stone's character, that she was essentially her goals as a character and what she needed to get out of her own life. She was infantilizing not just Asher, but everyone around her. And she's been doing this through her whole goal as a character of like trying to do this fake philanthropy sort of thing. Like the entire point of her character is not just to fill her own ego, but I guess technically kind of also still that she's trying to feel as though she's helping people. She's trying to convince herself as though she's helping people. She's trying to feel needed and have a purpose and feel useful in her life. And I think part of the reason why, they're in this relationship with each other, and there's clearly so much about their relationship that doesn't work. Their sex life is not great. They're like fantasizing about other people, even in those sexual scenarios. And it seems like they don't love each other. She's got all of these like moments where she is so frustrated with him and doesn't respect him, and she quickly and easily takes Benny Safdie's character's advice to throw a wrench in the relationship and make it worse and try to explore the idea of her wanting to leave. And she was just, as soon as that idea was mentioned, she was like, oh yeah, let's go for it. Didn't really care how it would affect Asher. There's clearly some tension between them, but they stay together. And she, remember when Nathan was like on the bed, like pleading with her and was like, no, I'll change. Like, I'll do whatever. And he even literally says like, as soon as you don't need me anymore, I'll disappear or whatever. Or as soon as you don't want me around, I'll just disappear. I won't say anything. So it's like her having the baby, I think, in my perspective, it now she doesn't need Asher because she has another thing that she can kind of nurture and care for in this way where it is like an unconditional love, or she feels like she can protect something. She feels like she can actually do good, and she can tell herself that she's doing something for someone else. And that's one of the, most basic or most common ways that a human being can do that is have a child and be like, no, I'm useful. I'm doing something good for someone else, and I am needed, and I'm a good person, sort of thing. And so I think that the baby existing, like, it's not necessarily, oh, Asher is literally the baby, but what Asher was to her is now being replaced by the baby. And so now she doesn't need him anymore. He disappears, literally, like you said the episode before, just in a different way than not the way that we would have expected. And so she whatever role that Nathan was fulfilling for her in her life is now being replaced by the baby.
That makes sense. Also, it feeds into that performative nature of I remember that scene where the show's producers are talking about, so when you're going to have a baby, it'll make you so much more relatable to the general audiences. And it's so there's that motive. Because before that, the idea of them having a kid is like kind of absurd with how they're talking about like breaking up. There's like a whole time jump in order to get to that baby. So yeah, that's quite a good way of summarizing that relationship. He has been kind of infantilized, and they're not on like this. They don't see each other as equals. That's for sure in that relationship.
Yeah. And even when they presented that in the show, in one of the re-edits, they wound up just like, every queen needs her jester. He's like just showing him as
Yeah.
pathetically as possible. Like, I'm trying to take comedy classes, and then like the funny, silly music while he's like trying to make jokes in the car and stuff. Like, she knows everything that's going on, but she's with him because he needs her, right? And even says, like, in one of the confessionals to the camera, like, what would you do without her? Like, I just couldn't live without her, right? And she feels some sort of
She feels smothered by
she
it.
feels more self-worth, whether internally or externally or both, whether it's for everyone or for her or both simultaneously. She feels as though she's doing some sort of good philanthropic sort of thing by just being with him. Like, oh, he needs me. And now the baby is there. Someone else needs her in maybe more extreme ways, right? Like, literally, you need someone to take care of you as a baby. And so, yeah, the purpose has now been fulfilled with him out of the picture and the baby in the picture. And I found it really interesting also. So some people even talk about the idea of the curse being real, in the sense that, like, perhaps the chicken curse was real and curses are real. Because in the previous episode, when he's being dropped off by Benny Safdie's character, Benny Safdie literally says, "I curse you," right? And he says that kind of to himself in his car. What's funny that some people pointed out is Benny's character, before he says, "I curse you," he literally says the word fly. Because Nathan was like, "Oh, what was that?" Like, as he like slams on the
Oh yeah, you're right.
yeah, and he says fly as in the word for a buzzing fly, but he,
A
like,
bug, yeah.
let's imagine that because he said the word fly and then said, "I curse you," that the curse,
Right.
perhaps it was Benny's
like
curse that made him fly up. And then we can also connect that into, the idea of the whole house flipping. Like, Nathan's character literally got flipped. Like, he flip entropy sort of thing. Like, a lot of really nice little puzzle pieces that fit into what the story is that they're trying to tell, and how things that fit thematically. And I love just seeing things connect. And yeah, it's really interesting. And they also kind of leave room for the interpretation, like maybe it was just a dream. Because remember, right before, they refuse the dream catcher from the Native American that was...
Oh, because it says made in China on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we don't want that. It says made in China. He literally gave them a dream catcher, and then they refused it. And it happened right after he woke up. So it's one of those things where it's like, whether it's literal or non-literal doesn't really matter. And there's room interpretation-wise for both possibilities. It's just what they're showing.
All of these sound reasonable in one way or another, yeah.
Yeah, it's what they're showing and what they're trying to communicate with what they're showing, and what is it trying to say? What are we getting out of it, right?
Yeah, well, my mind's racing now. Like, these lines I've written down, like, there's a little me inside of you, and like just weird stuff that stood out to me in the moment, but I wasn't like linking together and that kind of stuff. Or even like Emma Stone's reaction after seeing the baby, and then they ask about Nathan Fielder's character, and she's like, yeah, like you can find out about... She's not that fussed, I guess, is the point. Emphasizes that idea.
Because she doesn't need him anymore, because the baby exists.
Yeah. His purpose is now spent. That's brutal, yeah.
And then some people have even said, like, maybe Nathan was the curse. Like, the curse has been lifted, like, literally lifted. Like, he's out of the picture and things are fine now.
Yeah. And that last episode, the whole misdirect with that, like, cooking show is, like, such a surreal, like, funny scene.
Yeah, Rachel
the,
Ray
like,
or
guy
whoever.
from Sopranos making his meatballs, and, like, they're in the background... Like, they're trying to big up the fact that they're like pregnant and having a baby, and it's like not really being mentioned enough. And then that awkward like smile they're holding, like when it cuts away from the studio and it's like them in their house, and like the cameraman's just awkwardly like, they're all just there looking like zombies, just re-enhancing this performative thing they're always putting on. And they're in the dialogue complaining about how they didn't really bring up the baby. Why didn't they talk about the baby very much? Like, it's... all their motivations are in the wrong place. And all this emphasis is clever in retrospect to try and put together.
So as soon as Nathan Fielder's character is out of the picture, we get what I was mentioning earlier with the cinematography and the very intentional distance to each shot. We get the first sequence in the entire show where there's a camera like moving through spaces. Like we see the camera going through the hospital. We return to some of the older locations that we've seen throughout the show in a completely new lens, literally, not zoomed in.
Mhm.
You can see, you know, like the focal length and the distance of the camera is much closer, and you get like this much more wide perspective of things. And so it's like, you know, perhaps the curse has been around the entire show, and the framing of the show and the claustrophobic nature and distance between the characters and weird kind of foreboding way of communicating the cinematography. As soon as Nathan Fielder's character is dead, like that's lifted, right? That's we now
Mhm.
see everything through a different perspective, and it's like the curse has been lifted in a sense.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
But and then like the ultimate punchline of having, after Nathan flies into space, there are just random people from the neighborhood like watching, and it just focuses on a couple of random people in the crowd, and they're like, "How'd they do that?" Well, I think it's for TV. Yeah, it must just be for a show.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just kind of saying like, no one would believe you anyway if the curse was real. It's kind of, I guess, like the point. Like,
and also they're literally doing it for a show. Like they were literally.
It is for show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally. Yeah. And just like that, in that Dougie breakdown where he's talking about his dad, he's talking about like fatherhood, and he says something like, for a guy it's so abstract, which I wasn't really putting together the whole, Nathan Fielder just being a parent too, and all of these links with the Emma Stone pregnancy. It's like, wow, God, there is a lot to unpack here.
I'm going to enjoy it
so clever.
Even more on a second watch, I think. Just knowing where everything's headed and what ideas are being communicated, and knowing that they leave all these little clues and nice little treats throughout the show.
Because, I don't care who you are, you're not predicting that last episode.
It's like, not, you can't. It's like, where's this going?
Exactly.
No, you can't figure it out.
And not in a way, not in a way that's unsatisfying. It's more like, this is so entertaining and so like out of left field in a way that feels perfect. And it's entertaining on its own on a surface level anyway. They hadn't even begun like deconstructing it to that level, but there is like so much meat on the bone there. Like, I thought especially those last two episodes, so they were like 10 out of 10 to me. But I thought they were incredible, the way it crescendoed to those last two, and just the unpredictable nature of it, how just unusual and surreal and strange that is to just spin everything on a dime like that, and it not go too far to like ruin these three main characters and not finish their arcs or conclude it in a way that feels satisfying. So no, this is perfect for this story.
Yeah, I fucking loved it. Would gladly watch it again. Would gladly binge it again. Please release a Blu-ray or some shit, you fucking dumb assholes. Would love to own it physically. But for now, giving it a 9 out of 10. I could see it going up to a 10 on a second watch. We'll see. Absolutely loved it. One of the best shows I've seen in a very long time. Awesome job. And I'm super hyped for whatever Nathan works on next. And I think there's going to be a rehearsal season 2. Like, I don't know, whatever he does. I think he might be teaming up with Benny again or Emma Stone. I don't remember what I heard, but whatever he does next.
I hope so. He's on a roll. He is on a roll because this stuff is awesome.
That was a great collaboration, and they worked together super well. And I'm glad. I'm glad that they shared a singular vision, and I'm glad that both of their strengths complemented each other in a way to create something that was new and I had never seen before, and it worked. And it was incredible. This was fucking awesome.
Yeah, because the only things it was reminding me of was like awkward British comedies, but they don't have this like narrative like this, or the commitment to this tone and having like this weird unsettling synth score and hour-long episodes, and it's like a completely different thing to achieve.
Super ambitious.
Very admirable. This is awesome. Yeah, did I say my score? I guess
no.
The same as you. 9 9 out of 10, 4.5 star. Incredibly solid. That combo is just makes sense in retrospect, but is very unpredictable as far as how well the Fielder Safdie thing works.
I had no idea what to expect, but very impressed.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely loved it. Please go check it out. It's definitely worth your time.
All right, we had a recommendation.
We did have a recommendation. I'm looking forward to this one, man. Rogue One, nice. 2016. I'm going to take you back, nearly a decade now.
What we do here is go back.
Oh, man. So, yeah, this has been interesting to revisit because...
Why?
Well, there's a bunch of reasons, right? So, 2016, this followed right after The Force Awakens. Star Wars, they come back. There was the irony of this film being about like hope and ending on the word hope, and that being like an ongoing theme throughout this movie is funny now in retrospect and ironic. But yeah, I guess Disney and the audiences hadn't realized yet quite what Disney had in store. They had this. They were exuding this idea that they knew what they needed to do and they had the right people and the right focus. This was pre The Last Jedi, so pre it all like falling apart, I guess, for them optically. This is like considered, I think, still to this day, like the bright spot, I guess, because there's some like revisionism on The Force Awakens now, and that's like changed with time. But this one is the one, I guess, the Rogue One that's kind of stayed the same. It's like, well, at least we got Rogue One out of this. At least we're there. At least we got that Rogue One. At least we got this $200 million fan fiction made. But I got complicated feelings about this because while I do feel that way, and I think it's fair to categorize all of the Disney era Star Wars stuff as just like $200-300 million fan fiction for the most part. Because I don't know, I can't stop thinking about that. I think it was in the Red Letter Media review for The Force Awakens where Rich Evans says something along the lines of like, there's not enough to this IP to really justify where we're going with this. You know, where like in the 70s and the 80s, we kind of explored this. And this is something that is rooted in the past. I don't know how much room there is to this hero's journey into, is the world really that good and like so ripe to explore? Or is it just we're so nostalgic and attached to this IP, we just can't let it die? And I think a lot of it is that.
It's a cultural institution.
It is a cultural institution, and it's very weird talking about this film now because there was this real excitement, this like palpable excitement when Disney took over. It seems like so obvious and crazy to say now, but there was like a hope. It was like, oh, George Lucas doesn't have it now. Now there's hope for something, which it sounds so crazy to say now because it's like, why would any of us believe or trust Disney in any way or form with the way they conduct and use their IP? But yeah, I guess the impetus for this movie was that in the movie from 1977, there was a throwaway line that George Lucas wrote about there being a weakness in the Death Star, a vent that was left there that most people considered a plot hole. So I guess someone at Lucasfilm thought it would be a good idea to write a whole story and movie around the idea of why that was part of the Death Star and how they got the plans in order to destroy it to begin with. So many people had, nerd raged or nerd theorized and wondered maybe what that looked like, yada, yada, yada. And then you wind up with Rogue One, Gareth Edwards. And I don't know, I'm really torn on this movie because and I'm glad we're talking about this post the series Andor, which features the character Cassian, who is in this movie, who's kind of the maybe once in the screenplay was like a love interest type character, Han Solo-y, greyish rebel dude, who in this movie doesn't have much to do and isn't really fleshed out, not like, well, like most of the characters in the movie are pretty flat. But the potential of what this could have been is explored in the show Andor, which is a show I will I'll defend to this day
Great.
as actually having good writing, even though this is the impetus, and this is not a film I'd point out to say this is an example of good writing. I think the writing is actually pretty bad in this film. If we're talking about dialogue, if we're talking about characters, the strengths of this film to me are pretty much, it feels reverse engineered. It feels like they had this idea for the Battle of Scarif, this whole like set piece at the end on this tropical, evoking like Vietnam kind of imagery battle, big like heist, pretty much. That is the movie to me. And it feels like they had that, and they had this idea for like a big set piece, war inspired, that's the movie. But we got the Gareth Edwards problem where, man, we got to pick like a perspective character to see this world through, and we're just picking like the most boring, flattest way to do that. You could pretty much put all the characters in this movie in a roulette wheel, take the lead one out, and you'll have like a more fun perspective character, in my opinion. There's just nothing to her as like a lead.
She sucked. Her performance was the worst out of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Her line delivery was awful.
She's got nothing to do, and it's extra annoying when it's like her dad is kind of the interesting character. He's the one with the tension. He's the one who builds the floor into the Death Star. It's Mads Mikkelsen. He's got that gravitas when he's on screen. Kind of looks like a samurai with the robes and everything. He's got the look. He's got there's a thing when I talk about Star Wars where like some actors get it and some don't. I feel like Mads is one of those that gets it. He gets the like pulpiness at the right level, the campiness. I don't know if Felicity Jones has that. Yeah. It's not the right perspective to look at it through. And the film, like literally for me, I noted it down it takes like 50 minutes for it to start like clicking for me in any way. Because the first act is it is messy. And it jumps around a lot. Holy crap. There's like a segment 15 minutes in where for like 10 minutes, every minute it's like jumping to a different location, establishing something new, and it's just like dropping this awkward exposition, and it's got like the most clunky, awkward build-up and pace for that beginning, and like really, really lacks like a structure or focus. And I don't know, I feel like what this movie should have looked like is what we wound up getting with Top Gun Maverick, pretty much, where it's like, we're all here, let's just admit why we're here, right? We're just here for like dogfights.
Pew pew.
And the typical kind of like Star Wars stuff. Yeah, it's like you get the action figures and you have the set pieces, and it's all about like the scale of the effects and like what you're showing off.
It's a toy commercial.
Yeah, it definitely is a toy commercial. But that is where the stuff I like about the movie more comes in. It's like there's not nothing to appreciate about the movie.
You sure?
I think the way it crescendos towards the end with that action set piece on that planet, where you got the 3 different action set pieces happening at the same time. We've got like a dogfight happening in the air, a heist happening on the planet, and then like a ground like assault as well, and it's like cutting in between them and like building tension as it's cutting between them. That works for me, and there's like a scale to that, and there's something cool about that to me. And I even found there's actually a fan cut of this. What is it? I noted down what it's called, the Maple Cut, which carves out.
Why maple?
It carves this movie down to 40 minutes. I think it's just the name of the fellow who edited the cut. It edits down this whole movie to 40 minutes, which is pretty much just like the last like battle set piece, with like some more of the old sound effects and more of the classic music. And honestly, that there's something about that cut that's like, yeah, I think you kind of pinpointed what this is. Because really, to make this work, it needed to focus more on one plane of intent. Because it was still, at this point, this was the first, I guess, like big Star Wars movie that wasn't one of the big ones, with your Luke Skywalkers or whatever. It's like a spin-off movie, if you're not counting that stupid like Clone Wars animated thing that no one saw. So this one was confused by the tone. It was like, so what does a Star Wars movie look like outside of the more campy hero's journey lightsaber stuff is taking way more of a, I don't know, like a traditional war movie, like on the ground kind of approach. But it's trying to juggle both. So you have this like awkward, pandering kind of tone that Andor somehow manages to shed and keeps it consistent, and it's not like losing itself in these references and like, especially the references. Like some of them are so egregious.
It's a trap.
And that's not even the one that comes to my mind. There's so many, and there's so many problems with the way they do it, and it's so like clunky and kind of misses the point. It needed a laser focus on the perspectives. Like you couldn't. There are scenes that are so bad with that stuff. You said it in the intro. The don't choke on your aspirations. That scene on the lava castle is like so bad. Not just down to that dialogue, but the way it's shot and presented. There's like a huge drama behind this movie and theories about like what was shot in pickups and what was restructured and who gets the credit. Is it Gareth Edwards or Tony Gilroy? Because Tony Gilroy came in as like, well, it's like not fully confirmed, but there's like rumblings, and it's all like hidden with like these contracts and different egos and different theories that people have put together. But the current theory is that Gareth Edwards' director's cut was like a bit of a mess, which doesn't surprise me that much with what some of his other movies are like. Be it Godzilla or his latest science fiction thing, and it was all over the place. So I guess in a panic, they brought in Tony Gilroy to write some new scenes, do some pickups, try and turn this into something. So a lot of people credit that last section and the way it comes together more so to Tony Gilroy and getting that working, with the evidence being that Tony Gilroy conceptualized and wrote all of Andor, which is of a consistent quality that I would defend, and that I would recommend, and is a lot better than this film. It's actually weird watching it now because like I haven't seen it in a long time, and that show fleshes out these characters and is written in a way that doesn't feel like I've got to be dancing in all these caveats. Because for every time I bring up something positive in this movie, there's going to be a caveat, something bad. Like they just didn't have the restraint. They didn't have that restraint in them at all. Like they'll do something kind of cool, right? Like, Grand Moff Tarkin has to be in this movie, right? Because he's in the 70s one, and he's so directly linked in the power structure of this villainous force or whatever. So yeah, you have the Ben Mendelsohn, awesome character actor. He's got to go meet Grand Moff Tarkin.
They don't use him very well.
Oh no, yeah, I was about to get to it. They're like introducing him, and it's like they're keeping it restrained to the back of the character. It goes up to the reflection of his face in the glass of the ship that he's looking at, and it's like, that would be an awesome place to cut. Let's cut it there. No, but then the shot just keeps going, and then this CG monstrosity turns around and starts monologuing, and then you're like,
that didn't age very well.
God damn it! No, and that was distracting when it came out too. But that was one of the like, I don't know, people could look past that, I guess. But I that really bugs me, that decision. The only time that's really worked for me off the top of my head is in Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
And there was some, purposeful intent to that. It was supposed to kind of make you feel off and not hit right.
And it still looked better.
But this is like, and it still looked better. But it just straight up ruins any scene. If they're actors, they can't bounce off this, and it's always there in the front of your mind. It's so distracting. And if there's something show-offy about it, where it's like, God damn it, you're prioritizing the wrong part of this. Like this, you're not prioritizing the story, you're trying to just flex visual effects, which admittedly is like part of Star Wars' thing and has always been it. But it's like, why don't you flex it with the cool ships exploding in space? Like, why you gotta try and put these freaky monstrosities in front of me? Especially when you watch these behind the scenes videos where they find these people who can do the voice perfectly, who look really similar to him. And so you've gone to that level. Why, you can just have a different actor, you can recast him, you can frame this more tastefully, there's so many better ways to do it. And they don't just do it that one time. They do the same thing again, including the showing the character from behind, and it's like, okay, this is fairly tasteful, but it just keeps going. And at the end with the like Princess Leia CG monster
Oh,
that
yeah.
you see. God damn it, no.
Ugh.
You can't end the movie on that. That's too much. That is way too much.
And yet, they did.
Yeah, they did.
So fucking boring, dude. I'm like, I can't even sit still in my seat. I can't deal with this shit anymore. It just fucking bounces off my fucking brain. I'm so fucking done with this whole franchise. It's so boring. It's so boring. Everything.
It's tiring, I guess. No, you know.
There's no point. There's no point to any of it. It's not like an important story or anything.
Yeah, I feel like the only way this could actually work is if you took where this story goes and like this movie and the events of it were like what happens at the end of Andor season 3 after like all these characters have been set up and they actually have like proper scenes written about them and there's something that's actually fleshed out or interesting or like a lead character that's interesting or like something that isn't just fan service to carry you through this. Because, yeah, so much of it is, like, all over the place.
It's literally just, dude, it's Star Wars. That's it. That's the whole fucking movie. It's like, well, dude, it's Star Wars. So the entire movie is just one long fucking piss break.
They just play with things that, like, people would like or would like to see explored or expanded on. Like, taking a more, like, grey... Oh, look, these are, like, extremist rebels. We got Forrest Whitaker in here doing this thing. But it's like... I don't know what direction they gave him. Must have been Carte Blanche, though, because he's chewing the scenery hardcore. I feel like that you need a little bit more direction.
Oh, yeah. He felt very out of place.
We're just reeling back, because he's played that character. He is in Andor as the same character, and he's fine. And it's not distracting and not weird. But there's just these, like, strange choices with him. Like, he just sacrifices himself. For no reason. He just decides, man, I've been fighting bitterly this whole time, but now in this moment, I guess I'm just gonna give up, whatever. Save the dream!
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff. It's like, it's just too much. Too much. And like the mask and the breathing and stuff and the whole scene just like wasted on the Boar Gullet guy with Riz Ahmed. It's like, you got these really good character actors in here. Why are you wasting them?
None of them were used properly.
No. And that's even the thing of like, did any part of it remind you of Halo Reach at all? Because that was one of the things I liked about this back when it came out. So this is kind of like Halo Reach the movie.
That's what people said, but I mean, just the way it ended, I guess. But like, aside from that, I wouldn't have come up with that connection on my own. But I was also like painfully uninvested. Mm-hmm. I was also like every fucking 15 minutes felt like an hour.
That's one thing I would give it is, I guess, in comparison, there are stakes, and it's cool to see the like villainous force actually have some kind of sway. You're always like told in these movies how like powerful and oppressive this empire is. To actually see them succeed at something, and like people are dropping like flies, and it feels like there was a significant amount of loss to actually succeed in this mission, was something that I think a lot of people have wanted to see from this universe and like see on screen. And it's like, yeah, every time they get to something that I like the idea of, like the Donnie Yen character, and just like sprinkling in a bit of the sort of like philosophy or force stuff. I know it's like such a delicate balance for me with the referencing and is it even possible to do this delicately, or is it just done from the word go? You know, like, I'm just have my head on my hands when like C-3PO and like R2-D2 are just there for like no reason, and it's cut and framed in a way that's more for the audience instead of like what is happening in the movie. Like there are lines that read like that where it's like they might as well be looking at the camera and saying it to the audience instead of the characters who are in the scene. When it's like, I don't get that feeling in Andor. They actually have character moments. They have fleshed out like writing, and it's like consistent, and there aren't caveats. It just feels like so written backward, and like it needed to come out in 2016 with this specific zeitgeist to kind of hit the way it did. But some of the things it's like spawned as a result, like all the Star Wars fans love the like hallway scene, the Darth Vader scene at the end.
It's so epic.
Which apparently was a pickup.
He went shoo, shoo.
Which it's all like important within the context of like the fandom. Like the reason that was so got such a big response at that time is because I guess that character had never actually been shown to do something like that.
Yeah, because they forgot before, in the other movies.
So that was an itch that people wanted to see scratched. So, but then it's like fast forward 10 years and it's like 3 or 4 hallway scenes later, and it's like, well, now when I go back, it's not really the same thing, because there's just this Disney patina over this that just, it's just like so far gone. It's so like milked. It's all been blue milked to such the nth degree. It's all been like so, yeah, it has been like right up. And it's really difficult to like justify a lot of the decisions, or just revisiting it. Like this whole era of this Disney stuff is like
useless.
We just like rushed into this. We all know the facts that it's useless, and there's no mystery or hope, I guess, anymore.
Not at all.
That's what I'm trying to emphasize, is that when this came out, there was like a hope. There was some like confidence or like excitement. Whereas if you can contrast that with like where we are now, it's pretty sad, to be honest. Like, like
I think there was a typo in the script. They meant to say nope.
It's just, man, like, give me something you like. Give me one thing you like.
Nothing. There's nothing I like about it.
Not a single thing.
There's nothing I like about this.
Not one thing. You gotta have one thing. There's gotta be like something.
What should I have liked about it?
Like, for example, I think Gareth Edwards is good with scale, presenting things of a scale in a unique way that emphasizes it in a correct way. Like, I think it's cool having the perspective of, when they're on a planet, the perspective of the characters on a planet that has been shot with the Death Star beam. And then there's this enormous, like, there's that line about the horizon is gone, and this kind of, it feels big, it feels appropriate, it feels like it should. Death Star feels big.
I didn't get anything out of it.
Not one single thing at any point.
Not one single fucking thing. I'm so done and detached from this entire fucking franchise. It's just, there's got to be something that's as annoying for you that you could imagine, like, just seeing like a bullshit version of, and it's like, oh yeah, it's the scale. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess it would be like those monster movies, like Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, even. These kind of movies. Dingle vs. Kong, the first one. Yeah. But then I did enjoy the latest one a lot more. I don't know. It's crazy that, like, this is the one you missed, I guess, because this was a big...
Doesn't matter.
A big deal when it came out. I know, yeah.
It's fucking Star Wars. It's a Star Wars spin-off. It's a spin-off of Star Wars. I was tricked into seeing the other ones. Like, it's a cultural conversation that everyone's participating in. And even like when I saw like episode 7.
How come you saw Solo?
Sorry?
How come you saw Solo?
Because I had stayed awake
Solo, right?
all night, and then I was at the mall having to do something, and then I saw that there was a movie playing, and I was like, well, I should probably try to continue staying awake so that I don't fuck up my sleep, because otherwise I would have just gone home and went to bed. And I usually don't fall asleep in movies. If I'm watching a movie, I'm not going to fall asleep. And that one was like not great, but like these movies are better for theaters because it's loud and lots of explosions and things, right?
Yeah, it was significantly better in the theater from memory.
Yeah, all of these movies are better in a theater. And that's the only reason I saw it. I just saw it by myself because I was at the mall after having stayed awake all night, and I don't remember why.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just there, and I was like, well, it's playing in 15 minutes, so fuck it.
And I guess the Solo thing had the intrigue, at least, of like Ron Howard taking over from Lord and Miller in that kind of weird situation. Then it pretty much turns out, ironically, that all of these projects were a complete mess behind the scenes as far as production is concerned, outside of The Last Jedi. That was the smoothest one as far as production. And like the response to all of it is hilarious.
Yeah.
Just, the mess of it, all it took was 10 years. And optically, it's like completely flipped. It feels like the franchise is kind of at this point,
Yeah, well,
like,
what are they gonna fucking do?
They've ringed it.
What do they do? Nobody likes it anymore, especially after Rise of Skywalker or whatever.
They've ringed it so dry.
But people are still watching. Like, you're still watching Andor. Like, people are still watching the Disney Plus show.
But no one watched Andor though. That was the thing.
It?
It's not considered a particularly big success. No.
Well, oops. They goofed it.
So it's like, they figured it out right when the stakes were like as low as they possibly could be. Where it's like, there's this Disney Plus show that no one has any faith in. And I guess because it was the one that had no faith in, it was kind of left to be its own little thing. So it can exist in this pocket, like on Disney Plus. Whereas like this was before Disney Plus. I don't know. It was just a different time, which is just sad in retrospect.
When some of these things came out, like Episode 7, I watched in a theater and I enjoyed, but I still wasn't like attached to anything that was happening. I was just kind of like, oh, it's interesting. Let's see where this goes, sort of thing. Like there was kind of like a hope, and I was like, oh, it's cool that they're doing some of these old puppetry and, physical animatronics and blah, 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 blah. Like that was cool. And then it just ultimately wound up leading to nothing and not being important. And now, retrospectively, it's like, okay, well, how much do I even appreciate those choices? Right? Was it just because the bar was set so low with the fucking prequels and everything was a green screen and CG? Was that the reason why I was like, oh, yeah, this is nice? But I'm still not attached to anything that's fucking happening. I'm still not attached to, like, the characters. I don't give a shit about any of them. I don't give a shit about the universe.
Yeah.
None of the aliens are fuckable. It's really boring. Right? It's got nothing for me. It's got, like, absolutely fucking nothing for me.
It feels like gaslighting now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is weird where the optics, though, have shifted for most of these movies. It really hasn't with this one. This is one that's kind of stayed, but in revisiting it, like, the flaws are just... They're so glaringly obvious, and they're so, like... I don't like the 77 movie enough to make it up.
It all seems so pointless. These don't even exist to, like, tell a story of any kind. It's just to remind. It's literally they only exist to just be Star Wars because that was successful. You go, remember Star Wars, and that's the only reason these things fucking exist. And I wasn't even like ever attached to the original trilogy. I didn't care. It's not like it's not part. It doesn't occupy a space in my brain that I like care about. It just bounced off of me, and so many people are so emotionally attached to this fucking franchise. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it credit here and there, and like this, and for its impact on blah 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 blah. There's some making it in the 70s. There's things you can appreciate, blah 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 blah. But I don't love any of these films. Like, I'm not attached to any of these films. I don't give a shit. I find the universe so fucking uninteresting. It's boring, and it was like a ripoff of Dune anyway. It's doing this whole fucking biblical story. Pew pew. All of the fucking stormtroopers are just wearing plastic. Those are the villains. They never fucking hit anything.
Until Rogue One. Then they hit something.
Like all of the fucking tension and conflict feels forced and fake. It all just feels like a bunch of fucking idiots LARPing around wearing cheap costumes. Who cares? It's implied significance. Oh, the Force. The Force is with you. All this like weird religious undertone bullshit. I'm just so uninterested. It doesn't do anything for me.
It feels like the original trilogy was kind of like a happy accident that had to happen when it did.
Yeah.
And like the intent of it was almost like, I mean, like the one that's considered the best wasn't even directed by George Lucas, and most people probably couldn't even name.
Yeah, exactly.
Empire, which I don't think is a coincidence. And there's something about it, like created this feeling in the 70s and 80s that has just lived on, and there's been this obsession with trying to recreate and recapture it. But I think doing that is actually impossible. I don't know if it's possible or even a good idea to do that. I think after the prequels kind of already illustrated that recapturing this is going to be an issue with new times, with new technology. It's just like, we should have learned our lesson then. And there was a period there where there was this, I don't know, everyone was kind of done, you know, like after the prequels were there, it was like wrapped up. There was this hope for like, oh, maybe one day there'll be some other thing. And there's all this EU extended knowledge, and just fans came up with whatever they wanted to. And that was really the ideal. Like in retrospect, was like, we should have been, that's a way more satisfying place to be left, where it's like, you know what, prequels, whatever, this is just open now. At least Disney doesn't own it. We got the EU. We can just sit around playing with action figures, I guess, like making up our own stuff, you know, be inspired by it, make our own thing. But this Disney acquisition like opened up this floodgate of like, oh, now we can make ours. Now ILM can prove how much better technology is by CGing Peter Cushing. Isn't that a good idea? Because we can do that now. You know, just like the prequels prove, we can do that now. Look what we can do now. It's like, yeah, the story has to come first with this kind of thing, and that was ultimately their big downfall. With
story's fucking boring.
They just rushed. They put down billions for it, and in such a like rush to try and make their money back, they missed out the core of what is supposed to be the whole point of this. Like, I can within reason enjoy like the ships and, well, yeah, like they could have done something as far as like a trilogy.
The story of the first fucking trilogy is like just basic shit anyway. What do? Just tell the same story again? Do people really want to see that? I don't know. Apparently a lot of people.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just something about like, after that original trilogy, there's basically this whole franchise has been like farming potential, and everyone has this like idea built up in their head of like what this potential is. When it's like, the more you think about it, it's like, well, I guess the potential is the 80s movie or Dune or Alien, or no matter what, like whatever the knock-on effect has inspired or whatever. I don't know. There's just, thinking about it now, and like the whole gaslighting feeling, and that force awakening within me, like the realization that I'm sure like the 2019 Lion King emphasized for you and whatnot. Oh, there is no impetus here or like desire to tell a story. This is like farming something they know is valuable because so many people care about it. And there is something sad about that, and I've had it happen with, you know, Mass Effect, Halo, Star Wars, all this stuff I like loved growing up. But like, I guess the difference is where it doesn't really ruin anything for me as far as like, there'll always be the 80s movie for me. I can disconnect it in my head. I can sift through the stuff that sucks and the stuff that doesn't. That's fine by me. It doesn't like hurt me emotionally or whatever, but in the same way some people talk about this franchise. But yeah, there is something about that lost potential, I guess, that does suck, but yeah.
Star Wars is responsible for everything wrong with everything that's ever happened. Okay? Sorry, every bad political take you see is just someone viewing things through the lens of Star Wars. Every bad movie take you see is just someone viewing things through the lens of Star Wars. Everything's through the lens of Star Wars. People are fucking Star Wars brained. Every dumbass you see is Star Wars brained.
Everyone. Yeah, but now that's farmed. I guess what we're running out of things to farm. You know, like the Star Wars, it's kind of been drained. All the IPs have been drained. Like Alien Romulus is coming out. Did you even know about that? Like I was like, oh my god, like, there's another thing that's been drained.
Fede Alvarez.
Like what IP that has been going on since the 70s is still exciting like that? That's had consistent entries.
Dune.
What is there? But the 80s Dune movie was like comically hilarious. And like yeah, there is, I don't know, something psycho about all this.
I'm fucking done with it. So the reason Alex recommended this is because I, on my Batman v Superman watch along, got really pissed off and bored. And I was a little drunk. And I was like, this is all Star Wars' fault. So I rated every Star Wars film a 1 out of 10. Because I'm fucking done with the franchise. Like, I hate it. I hate the whole thing. And some people are like, oh, how can you justify doing that? The same way I justify giving Neil Breen films a 10 out of 10, which no one bats an eye for, by the way. No one gets offended about that. No one cares about that. My ratings, as with everyone's ratings, are a combination of both what I consider to be measurable qualities like acting, cinematography, music, sound design, lighting, editing, direction, etc. Those are measurable qualities that are all fed through the lens of whoever is perceiving them. So through me. So that is also subjective. Those measurable qualities plus my own emotional experience with said film. So in the case of Neil Breen, I can understand that there are measurable qualities to those films, or what I consider to be through my own perspective, that are bad, that are imperfect. But for something to get a 10 out of 10 rating from me, it has to be something that I truly love. And I truly love Neil Breen films. And so the amount of love that I have for those films would influence the rating so much because I love, let's say my love for the film is worth 1 billion points or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. My emotional experience plus the measurable qualities, the emotional experience is so high that it goes all the way to a 10. For Star Wars, I love it negative 1 billion points. So in that same sense, sure, there are measurable qualities where, like if I didn't have such a hatred for this whole fucking franchise and everything related to Star Wars and didn't consider it to be a cancerous plague upon society, then if Rogue One was like its own movie, then it's like, I don't know, 4 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
But I'm so fucking sick and allergic to Star Wars that my emotional experience is negative 1 billion. So it goes down to a 1, and that's the lowest rating that I can give it, and that's a perfectly valid rating. that if you have a fucking issue with, you're insane. You should be allowed to give something a number rating out of 10 that aligns with your emotional experience of the film. That is not a new concept, and you are creating an exception for Star Wars because you think that there are some things that are untouchable, and there are some things that everybody has to love or has to give some sort of credit in some way. I can still give it credit, but you don't understand my hatred for this franchise. You don't understand how much my emotional experience exists to weigh in to the rating for the film. It's a genuine rating. I am sick of Star Wars. I am done with Star Wars. So grow up.
Did you feel this way pre-Disney buying it? Or is that like the straw that broke the camel's back?
I felt this way as of 2 weeks ago. I have come to a realization about myself. Because I was never really into I really didn't care about it. And it was always something that I felt like manipulated into pretending to care about or trying to give like some sort of like,
pressure to care
it's good
about.
for the time, or like, and this, blah, 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 and trying to give it little bits of credit here and there, understanding the entire cultural weight and experience of everything that it inspired and blah, 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 and all these things that I'm supposed to like about it. But I'm done with that, and I'm coming out, and I'm brave. I'm the real fucking rebel, okay? I'm Rogue One, and you're the Empire, okay? All of you fucking Star Wars heads, you're the Nazi Empire, okay? So if you think of things in terms of your Star Wars brain, that's how you start. You have to start thinking about this conversation, okay? I'm the rebel, and you're the simps. I'm based, and you're cringe, and every single conversation and every single thing that we view in this universe is through a simplified lens of good and bad. Right? And that's what Star Wars has done.
Yeah, that can be okay sometimes.
Yeah, I'm allowed to do that. If you're allowed to give anything a 10 out of 10, I'm allowed to give something a 1 out of 10. Grow the fuck up. Stop being emotionally invested in franchises to the degree where you care about whether or not somebody else enjoys it. That is my own experience with the film. I hate it.
Yeah, I guess where my anger sits more, I just point it more towards Disney. Honestly.
As if those things are inseparable at this point.
Well, yeah. But like, how do you pass that disconnect with The Lion King, for example? Does the 2019 version existing minimize the original in any way, or like take away any of that quality to you?
It makes me love the original even more.
Yeah. I feel like I could make a similar kind of case for... I would still defend the 77 version and Empire, at least. Those are the two I would stand by. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm not getting tricked into watching Star Wars again.
No. Yeah, I'm with you though. I just don't get the like emotional fervor, like the upset it gets to. It's just so there is something specifically about this franchise that just brings something out of people. It really does. I don't identify with that. I don't like. I've never enjoyed that as someone who's been like a longtime fan of this franchise, and just have a childhood link to it that I just can't disconnect. I'm sure in the same way you can't with Lion King, you know, where it's like it's always going to mean something to me.
Yeah, people fucking deify the franchise, right? When they see things as like institutions, as like untouchable pillars of society. It's a fucking movie. Okay? You can understand and appreciate what it's done culturally. That doesn't mean somebody can't like it. That doesn't mean somebody can't have a legitimate distaste for it. Okay? It's my brain. It's my emotional experience. Don't try to delegitimize that. You can have your own. But you're the Empire, and you're dumb, and you're cringe. And I'm based.
But to reel it back and give Rogue One a score, I'm pretty much like right down the middle. It's like for everything I like, there's something that really pisses me off, and I can't let go, especially on rewatch now, this 10 years later. It's like everything feels so different and reframed, even with how much I do enjoy Andor, and will defend that show too, and will recommend that show, actually. I've just got to, go straight down the middle for like a 5 out of 10. 2.5 star. There's a lot I like about it. I think there's a lot of potential in there. If these characters were fleshed out, if these set pieces were strung together through like a perspective I cared about, or was just given the time it needs, or was just more focused like a Top Gun or something. It was like not getting lost in these stupid references to the 77 version and just having just dumb shit just show off the like I don't like you either guy just showing up, like stopping the whole film for like no reason, just to show off this annoying small galaxy syndrome bullshit that doesn't even make sense if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. And there's just something sad about it at this point.
I'm going to be generous with this one.
Generous?
Giving it a generous 1 out of 10. All right. Question time. We got time for like 3 questions.
Let's do a couple questions here then from the Sardonicast community. Head over to the suggestion thread over on the subreddit where you can leave any questions like Mr. Goosey McGooseface 2 did. As you hear these composers, what score or sound comes to your mind first? So I'm just going to say these and tell me the score you associate them with. Number 1, Hans Zimmer.
Dark Knight, I guess.
I say, yeah, Inception. 2, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross.
Which is funny because the Lion King score is like one of my favorites of all time, but it's just like it doesn't feel consistent with his other body of work in a way.
Yeah, you're right. And there's the whole Elton John.
Like the Hans Zimmer type score is very much like Christopher Nolan style. When you think Hans Zimmer,
that's why. Yeah, I think of Inception with the Bois thing, and yeah. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. What do you think of with that? For me, it's Social Network.
Yeah, like Social Network. Yeah.
John Williams.
Fucking Spielberg.
For me, that's Star Wars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars, Indy Jones.
Yeah, Star Wars for me. Jerry Goldsmith.
What has he done?
For me, Alien is the big standout for me whenever I think, Jerry Boy.
Why don't I know that name? Let's see.
Google his name. You'll definitely recognize a bunch of
Composer, like 300 fucking movies. Okay, yeah, I mean, The Edge and Congo both had good scores for
both The Edge.
What those were. Yeah, Alien was great, but
I forgot I did The Edge.
Yeah, let's do The Edge in Congo. Jerry.
Johnny Greenwood.
Oh hell yeah. I guess like There Will Be Blood and
yeah, I think of There Will Be Blood and those scary strings and
fucking Phantom Thread.
Phantom Thread, yeah. How about Ennio Morricone?
Fucking Good, Bad, and the Ugly, I guess.
Yeah, that's the obvious one.
Yeah,
and like similar for Howard Shore as well. For that's the next one, Lord of the Rings. I don't know what else.
Has he done some M. Night stuff? Howard Shore.
Howard Shore.
Or am I confusing it with somebody else? Let's see.
You might be right, actually. He's done a few like random things. He did like Spotlight, I think, and like some random stuff like that.
Did he do? No, I was confusing that with somebody else. Well, I guess Lord of the Rings then.
And finally, John Carpenter.
The Thing. He composed that, right? No.
That's a good question. That might actually be one that he didn't do, weirdly.
Let's see. Composer. Oh, weird.
As good as that score is. Yeah.
All right. I guess fucking They Live.
That is weird, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, Halloween for me. Yeah, that was fun. This was a good one I feel like we needed to at least throw out there and see your thoughts on this. Vince is depressed, says this. Have you guys noticed the slowdown, delay, or cancellation of Hollywood/streaming projects recently? Ever since the writers/actors strike of 2023 has been resolved, there have been no real work or return to pre-strike levels of work in the film/television/streaming industry. I think this is because the IASTE and an animation union. IATSE, yeah, an animation union are negotiating right now with the studios. Hollywood/streaming doesn't want to greenlight stuff or have projects in development in case an other strike is called. Thoughts about this? Also, this has affected me personally. My father is a set painter and has not been working since November of last year. I had to step up to help my family by taking up another shift at my job while balancing college. I hope they can avoid a strike, but to be honest, I doubt it.
I honestly had no idea. So
it's hard to assess, like, because it feels like there's more stuff than ever, but is that actually true? And what's like the staggering process?
Yeah,
like
maybe cost cutting.
When was Fallout and stuff like that actually made? But then I am thinking about, like, I don't know, this is the first year in years where there's one Marvel movie, for example, where there's like all these delays, all this shifting around, all this, I've been saying it for ages. Like these numbers and the money, like it was unsustainable, and like it hasn't made sense for quite a few years. And I feel like the COVID stuff interlining with the launch of all these subscription services and stuff like Disney Plus. Now they're like panicking where they realize, oh shit, like every Disney Plus show is like $200-300 million. But then we've also got to release movies that cost the same amount to make, but we've trained our audiences to not go out and see them and to wait for us to put them on Disney Plus. So now we feel like we're missing out on that like income stream on the same level. Speaking of Rogue One, I feel like they got cocky during that era, that they could Disney could fart and they'd make $1 billion during that era. Like the dumbest shit was making billions of dollars in like the 2010s from Disney. Yeah. So then they dilute all these brands through the streaming, and now they're like all these big flops are coming out one after the other. The money isn't making sense. Strikes are going on. AI's coming in. It's like this perfect storm of shit as far as money's concerned. It just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't feel good for that type of movie anyway. The big Hollywood system, and you know what? Maybe that's good. Maybe it needs to crumble. You know, maybe something
might be imploding.
Can grow out of. Yeah, at least that kind of scale of just ridiculous filmmaking where you have to gross $800 to $1 billion even to break even type stuff, you know, Indiana Jones budgets and these Avengers movies. It's just so absurd. And this little anecdote about like set painters and people like this, they're the ones who suffer in the end, you know, the people that the hands you need on set and aren't the big names, aren't the big credits that are getting millions of dollars. It's the thousands of hands that you need to get these projects together that are suffering in the end. The writers, the actors, the stage hands, the whoever. I don't know. I've got a bad feeling about this.
You can't pay the CEOs any less. That would be communism.
Yeah, that would be way too hard.
They need the bonus. They're struggling to afford the third yacht.
They need to be able to compete with the other. Yeah, exactly. They need to get a bigger yacht because the other CEO that they know made more than them, so they got to get a bigger yacht.
Mm-hmm. Well, shit sucks.
Yeah.
And all of our jobs are being replaced by AI in like a month anyway. So. Oops.
Yeah, true.
Whatever.
Should we wrap up on this one then from Shadow Conspiracy?
Yes.
Kind of feeding into something I brought up earlier. Thoughts on the new Alien Romulus movie coming out? So I kind of mentioned this earlier. I guess this is coming out. I guess Ridley Scott doesn't have his mitts on it anymore, and it's like the Evil Dead remake director, right? But not the latest Evil Dead remake, the one before that, or something.
Yeah, the Evil Dead 2013.
That's right, 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got that director. There's a trailer up. I've seen the trailer. Again, kind of like the Star Wars conversation. I felt this way about Alien 2 for a while, where it's like, well, can we just leave this now? It's not scary anymore. This creature is not a frightening creature. He's in Fortnite with Predator and The Rock or whatever. We need to stop. Why?
It'll do well. People are so fucking starved for like a good space horror thing. Remember when Life came out? That movie that you just remembered existed because everybody thought it was like decent at the time, but then nobody talked about it.
Oh, is that Ryan Reynolds with the like little squid thing?
It might have been Ryan Reynolds,
right?
Or it might have been Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't remember.
No, it was Jake Gyllenhaal. You're right.
It was Jake Gyllenhaal.
Maybe, yeah.
And it was just remember people thought it was like going to be tied into Venom. It was like a Sony like space horror thing.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah, people had their like theories.
Oh, what a forgettable film.
Exactly, right? I just everybody listening, I just reminded you that it existed. It existed. That movie was successful because people are itching for a good space horror. And these things don't come out frequently. People like that type of tone and that type of environment and setup. And so I think it'll do well no matter what it is. I'm pretty sure every Alien movie, like every recent one, especially has like made money, even though most of them are
Even
shit.
that last one, because it had like I remember having a stupid teaser for like a sequel at the end. Like it was left open ended, clearly with like we're gonna make more of these, but they obviously didn't. So, I guess that's where I'm confused.
So it still made money, $240.9 million against a production budget of $97 million, not including marketing costs. So it made some money, and maybe it didn't do as well as like they thought it would, and so maybe they decided not to do like some.
And
sort
it was
sequel.
really bad,
but it was also critically panned, and like everybody had issues with it. That was kind of a weird one. It like didn't even seem like the same director as Prometheus, which is also not a perfect movie, very flawed. But this was like a new low.
It's a lot better. There's at least something to appreciate.
Yeah, so I'm glad Ridley Scott is not directing, because it seems like he doesn't give a shit anymore. It seems like he doesn't care what's going on, and he was just kind of farting things out after a while anyway.
Very workmanlike, yeah.
Fede Alvarez, I have mixed feelings on, in the sense that like nothing he's made has ever like really connected with me to an extreme degree or like stuck with me. Didn't love I didn't love the entirety of Evil Dead 2013. I loved the gore in it. I loved things about it.
The gore was fun.
And then, what was it called? No.
Don't Breathe?
Don't Breathe, thank you. Don't Breathe had some fun stuff in it. Like, I could watch that again, even though it wasn't great.
I enjoyed it for what it was worth.
Yeah. It's something I could maybe revisit, and there's some fun stuff in it. I would like to see what he does with an Alien movie. I don't think it's like destined to be terrible. It's destined to be something that I'll probably have a bunch of issues with, but I don't know, like I could see it in a theater sort of thing. Yeah. I'll be a part of that conversation. I don't feel tricked into doing it. I feel like I'm doing it on my own terms.
Oh yeah. I feel like if you've sat through Covenant, you might as well sit through Romulus at this point.
Yeah, Romulus is a hilarious name.
I don't love the name. Yeah, I was about to say there. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be.
Sounds like a Tim and Eric name.
Yeah.
And so I find it interesting this director has, from his, like, Evil Dead, that was just, a lot of it was kind of dumb. Wasn't a huge fan. Don't Breathe, I started to notice, like, damn, a lot of these shots are just kind of like rip-off Fincher shots. Like, he was borrowing a lot from Panic Room. I don't know if you picked up on that, but it was like so clear that he was just like trying to emulate Fincher in that movie, but not quite getting there. And then what I found super funny, this director's filmography is like immediately after that, they get him to do the fucking Fincher sequel, Girl in the Spider's Web. I'm like, okay, now you're like literally taking after like a Fincher project.
Oh,
now he's doing Alien, which is also Fincher was associated with at one point. So it's kind of funny that he's like in this weird little Fincher hole.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even know about the Spider's Web film. I didn't even realize that ever came out.
Yeah, I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
He's not incompetent.
Wow, okay.
And there's bound to be some enjoyable things, I think, in this movie. And it can't possibly be worse than Alien Covenant, right?
There's no way.
Famous last words.
We'll see, but yeah, it'll be difficult. There's like this emphasis on the practical effects and stuff like that, which I mean I appreciate, I guess, but
yeah, but I don't know how much to believe. That's a marketing thing.
It's a marketing thing. It did the same thing with Evil Dead, right? Like, I don't know what to believe.
They did the same thing with fucking Jurassic World. Which, if anybody's seen it,
yeah, they did.
Didn't really ring true to the marketing.
That theme park bullshit. No, yeah. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Also, I'll watch it when it's out.
It's just not that exciting to me. I'll watch it, but like, I'm not like hyped or anything.
It's a genre that can be fun. And people are itching for a good one, and it probably won't be great, but it'll be serviceable.
Yeah, space horror is cool.
Probably, maybe. It might do some weird retconning that some people might be upset about, but
We'll see. We'll see.
All right. Good episode. Meaty conversations.
We did it. Varied.
Yeah. You finally got me.
Oh yeah.
You finally hurt
I
me.
did get you.
Yeah, you got me good.
I know, yeah, I feel bad, but
Do you?
sometimes you gotta just...
How much of your movie watching experience was just, like, imagining what I would be thinking at any moment?
For the first 50 minutes, when I was,
Yeah.
like, really bored by what was happening, I was just kind of, like, picturing, like, what your reaction was, yeah? Which, yeah, that does help.
Yeah. Well, it's, it's fine. Because Mars Needs Moms was not a real punishment anyway, so...
That was too much of a joy.
It was
kind of had
too
to
much of a
even
treat.
it out a little bit.
Yeah. So, for people curious as to whether or not I'll continue the Spite era that Alex revived, you're going to have to wait because we're doing a guest episode next episode. We're having Dan Christmas, animator. He did 2 of the Sardonicast animated animations, and he's done a bunch of like animations and did some stuff for my gaming channel back in the day, and he wants to talk about...
You did the old jar intro.
Oh, yeah. True. Nice. He wants to talk about Ed Wood.
He's all over the place. Awesome. That's it. For how big of a Burton fan I was growing up, that's one that slipped me by somehow, so I'm really excited to finally check it out.
So he knows that neither of us have seen it, so this will be interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah. Ed Wood, directed by Tim Burton, 1994. If you don't want to be spoiled for this movie, watch it before the next episode. These episodes come out every 2 weeks. You can listen to them early by going to sardonicast.com, sign up for premium. It's only $2 a month, or patreon.com/sardonicast. We have now come up with a solution for the members version.
Yeah.
So if you want to stay on YouTube for the convenience of that and sign up for a membership on YouTube instead. So YouTube has this thing where, for some reason, the members video uploads, when it's set to members, people can't download them or watch like with their screen turned off or like play in the background on their phone sort of thing. So what we've done now is, since the Patreon just links to an unlisted YouTube video anyway that eventually gets published into the real video, what we've done now is, with the members video, in the video description, there's a link to the same unlisted YouTube video. So if you sign up for a membership on YouTube, you will still be able to play in the background, do anything that any other video can. You just have to click on the video link in the description that links to the unlisted video. And we might, who knows, maybe we'll keep publishing the members video for a while. Let me know in the comments if anybody has any feedback on this. If you're a member, we'll see your badge and everything. Because we could always just do like a community post that links to the unlisted video instead of having to upload 2 separate videos. So if anybody feels like they're not missing anything by having that separate dedicated video for members, then we just won't do it. We'll just do a community post that only members can see. And you would just want to make sure that you have like the bell turned on so that you get the notification, and just have that set to all posts.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they just like fixed that as well.
Surely they have to at some point.
Feature. Yeah, you'd hope so.
Because that seems like a crazy, like that doesn't make any sense.
Really stupid. Yeah.
Why would they do that? All right.
But we got a workaround for now.
Ed Wood.
Let's go.
Happy Shrek. Thanks for listening, everybody. We got a Sardonicast highlights channel also. Subscribe to that. And we'll be figuring out new merch at some point. I just revamped my YMS merch. Bunch of great designs. YMSmerch.com.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, thanks. And so we'll be doing something similar of a revamping for Sardonicast stuff. If you got any ideas for merch or any like quotes, I don't know, like Happy Shrek shirt. I don't know. Fuck. What's a good quote? Send us your suggestions. Post on the subreddit. Post wherever you think we'll see them, and maybe we'll consider them, and maybe you'll see it on a shirt or a hat, a beanie,
Borgullet shirt,
a toque.
That's what we're waiting on.
A sweater, a hoodie. All right.
Sweatband.
No. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks for listening, everybody. Happy Shrek. Bye-bye.
Mate.